Welcome to the work session for Thursday, May 7th, 2026. Pleasure to have everyone with us. Sinead, do we have any comments from residents?
No, sir.
Okay, Chris, city operations update.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We have ICTN, and last month on ICTN. Saul, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Saul Garza, Communications Manager, sitting in for April Riling. Yeah, we had a busy month for the Communications Department and ICTN. We're pleased to help inform a lot of residents with nearly 10,000 views on our candidate forum. Also, news on what's happening in and around Irving. So let's take a look at ICTN last month.
Your ICTN team produced 49 videos in the month of April. We invited all of the candidates for mayor and city council single-member districts, 3 and 6 seats, to come to our studio.
I knew that this was truly going to be something that we could bring back as a thank you to him and finishing a project that he's been very passionate about and that he had great love for.
Imagine like a city is putting this on, entertainment for you for free. It's just, it's awesome. As long as we're going somewhere together.
Hey, here's an idea. What if you, I don't know, say my name 3 times?
Theater is so special and so human that I think really needs to be explored by the community.
We've got 11 different performances that'll be going on the stage, everything from the folklorico dancers to the Chinese dragons, which are always a crowd favorite.
I think it's great that the kids can come out here. It gives them an opportunity to learn about animals. We love the atmosphere. We love the people that come out here.
Patrick Ta, 1 footstep.
Being a part of this festival, it's very nice because you get to, show like your creativity, you get to show like what you've been working on, and I'm very, very excited to be here.
I think some people may feel intimidated to ask certain questions at their local auto shops. We want to be able to kind of lift that veil, answer questions that people may be concerned about.
Some of the strongest, most durable weightlifting barbells that the world's ever seen.
Yes, it's competitive. It is so competitive.
It does get competitive, but it's a good competition. It's fun.
Stay up to date by subscribing to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The City of Irving.
And a lot more to come this month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I have a proclamation for tourism. Maura, do you have some people with you? You can join me up in front. You only hug Dan? We're supposed to be professional now for a while. You got everybody, Maura? I know it. I know it. That's why I want to make sure we got everybody. Well, as we have the opportunity many times to talk about the ICVB and what they do and how important they are to our community. In fact, Maura's going to give us a quarterly update a little bit later today. But this is National Travel and Tourism Week, so we have a proclamation to that effect. And whereas tourism is a powerful economic driver for the city of Irving and a key part of its success, generating nearly $4.1 billion in direct visitor spending annually and attracting 4.5 million visitors each year. And whereas visitor spending bolsters a safe and visitor spending bolsters a safe and vibrant Irving community, supporting 25,000 jobs and generating $85.5 million in local tax revenue to contribute to the essential services and programs. What that means is it saves every household $901. If we didn't have the dollars coming in from the travel and tourism and to do the things that we do within the city, it would cost every homeowner $901 more. And whereas promoting Irving as a premier destination for meetings, events, and leisure travel not only supports the essential industry, but also introduces corporate leaders, decision makers, and potential future residents to Irving, the headquarters of headquarters. And whereas visitors to Irving generate hotel tax dollars, which make our community visible, viable, and vibrant, supporting Irving Arts, museums, the Toyota Music Factory, and the work of the Irving Convention and Visitor Bureau and Convention Center. Now, therefore, I, Rick Stouffer, Mayor of the City of Irving, and the Irving City Council do hereby proclaim May 3rd to May 10th, 2026 as National Travel Tourism in Irving, Texas. Congratulations. Sam, you're elected to speak. You're the closest to the microphone.
Wow. All right. Well, Mayor and Council, thank you so much for recognizing what the Irving Convention and Visitors Bureau does for our community. Without it, we would be in a different situation, and we're so happy that you all have continued to support us year after year. And rest assured, we are doing our part to continue the growth in the community. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, along with the rest of the team. Maura and her staff, they do an incredible, incredible job. So thank you again.
Okay, we got to turn sideways.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Now show us. Perfect. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Thomas isn't used to being on this side of the camera. Thank you. Hey, Beth.
Hey, Mayor. Hey, Mayor. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, Robert. How are you?
Okay, since we have people here, we have a couple of things that we're going to skip over the regular agenda and move to the chamber. Beth, are you ready? It was a toss-up between you or Maura. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Stouffer, members of the City Council, City Manager Chris Hillman, and staff and guests. I'm Beth Bowman. Have the pleasure to serve as your President and CEO of the Irving Las Colinas Chamber of Commerce and the Irving Economic Development Partnership. And today I have the pleasure to share with you our semi-annual report for the results that we've driven since October 1 to March 30th. I trust each of y'all received your paper packet, which included, just as a quick summary, a very detailed memo about the great work our team has performed in collaboration with the City, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Las Colinas Association. For those of you that don't like to read the details and want a summary to share with your constituents, there's a snapshot of quick facts in that report, a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that I'll go through. We have agreed on key performance indicators for our Economic Development Services Agreement, as well as our International Affairs and Sister City Services Agreement. So those KPIs and how we're tracking against those items are in the following 2 tabs. And of course, all the great press that has been driven and covered as it relates to businesses coming home in Irving, or those companies that are here and committed to staying in Irving and expanding. Just some key results. Our recruitment and retention effort for the first half of the year generated significant capital investment, creating nearly 1,700 new jobs, attracting notable domestic and international companies, while at the same time retaining key existing employers, demonstrating a strong return on the community's investment. Even among ongoing economic uncertainties, Irving continues to outperform state and national benchmarks, with unemployment remaining low and business confidence strong. On the international front, we're actively positioning Irving Las Colinas as a position and a premier destination for global business, hosting high-level delegations and fostering relationships that open doors for future investment and strategic partnerships. Again, these are the projects that our team has generated, and we call them our wins since October 1 to March 30th. 20 new recruitment wins, translating to over 700,000 square feet of commercial space leased, $78 million in capital investments, and over 1,600 new jobs. Notable new tenants include Unleash Brands, a children's education operator, as well as international companies such as EVA Air, Dark Trace. Other significant investments include $34 million in the Sandman Hotel and Suites on Meridian Drive, and the Electric Power Research Institute, which will bring 500 new jobs home to Irving Las Colinas. These projects demonstrate the value proposition of connectivity, a central and safe location, access to quality workforce, and affordability continues to resonate with companies, reflecting a stable business climate and a solid return on the Irving Economic Development Partnership's efforts. Retention is our utmost priority, not always making the headlines, but supporting and retaining our businesses, large and small, that call Irving Las Colinas home has always been and remains a top priority for our team. As we reflect on the first half of the year, our retention and expansion efforts protected nearly $230 million in capital investments, created 120 new jobs, and preserved over 2,200 existing jobs. Notable successes include Shermco Industries and technology firm Strauss, while we helped retain 300 jobs. These 15 retention and expansion wins total more than 635,000 square feet of commercial space, underscore how closely our team collaborates with employers to help grow here rather than relocate elsewhere, keeping Irving Las Colinas a strong and thriving community. We also celebrate and participate in many grand openings. Mayor and members of the council, City Manager Hillman, your team, these businesses appreciate you showing up for grand openings, ribbon cuttings, where we're able to break ground. And these businesses also serve our community, provide our residents as well as our employees opportunities to dine. These companies employ over 130 people, and these businesses represent over 34,000 square feet of commercial space. Texas Workforce Commission has released the unemployment results for January 2026. And as I shared earlier, Irving continues to demonstrate strong economic resilience. While Irving's unemployment rate increased slightly from 3.4 in December to 3.9 in January, it's remained below 4% since March of 2022. Even more encouraging, Irving has outperformed both the state and national averages. Compared to Texas Workforce Commission data during the same period, the state of Texas saw its unemployment rate rise from 3.9 to 4.5, and national rate increased from 4.1 to 4.7. So Irving's ability to maintain an unemployment rate below those benchmarks highlights the strength of our local economy, workforce, and business community. Irving's submarket occupancy report from CoStar Group highlights encouraging trends across the city. So we take a look at Valley Ranch, is seeing steady improvement in office occupancy, while retail continues to perform well, reflecting growing local demand. Freeport office priorities are showing modest gains, signaling opportunities for revitalization and growth in well-located seasoned buildings. South Irving remains strong with high occupancy rates across office, retail, and industrial sectors, demonstrating continued opportunity for tenants. Las Colinas continues to show improved leasing activity driven by tenants seeking flexible workspaces, modern amenities, and locations that enhance employee engagement and work-life balance. South Irving and Freeport industrial spaces maintain high utilization at above 90%. Overall, the data that CoStar illustrates stable or improving occupancies across office and industrial sectors, reflecting confidence amongst tenants and developers and positioning Irving for continued growth in the coming quarters. As we take a look at international affairs and sister cities, and again, just emphasize that Irving is an established international city. The first half of the fiscal year, our team participated in 4 outbound or inbound trade missions, 2 international cultural events, international visits, and secured 3 business recruitment wins. You can see the Irving team here and appreciate Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Cronowit attending the UUDS aerospace opening with Secretary Jane Nelson. So this was a big international win for our community. We were also able to welcome the Ambassador of France to Washington, Consul General Frank Marchetti, and as I shared earlier, Secretary Nelson for the UUDS Aero opening. And then we also welcomed a delegation from Tokyo Metropolitan Government Small Medium Enterprise Division, meeting with city, chamber, and regional economic development leaders at home in Irving. I'll just share and emphasize here, Mayor, council members, to our business community. Our chairman, Harry Lake, is joining us today. It is not often where you see government and business coming together to show international companies that we are open for business. So thank you to everyone who readjusts their calendars to accommodate these companies that are looking to establish a location within the United States. We obviously want that to be in Texas, and more specifically in Irving, Texas. On the marketing and advertising side, day in and day out, we're continuing to amplify and tell the Irving Las Colinas story. Here is an example of the advertisement that we were able to secure as the state was celebrating its 14th consecutive Governor's Cup, which was awarded by Site Selection Magazine and recognizing the state's continued leadership in economic development. I'll just emphasize this doesn't just happen. So joined here today by Diana Velasquez, who leads our economic development efforts, and Joe Chapa, who leads our international affairs efforts. And we collectively work together as a team, and we take these wins locally, report them to the state, and Governor Abbott gets to celebrate these wins amongst many of us throughout the community. But this publication in Site Selectors Magazine targets 4,000 qualified readers in a digital and print platform, securing strong exposure to decision makers. We continue to work on our digital marketing efforts, including display and video advertising. We've added 424 new followers, nearly 27,000 targeted followers across Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and generated more than 70,000 views through our digital marketing campaign and generated over 360,000 impressions. Irving is in the news, positively in the news. You can see the headlines. You see businesses coming home to Irving, businesses that are here investing in Irving, and that is not by accident. Mayor and council, you provide policy that allows us as professionals to work collaboratively, starting with City Manager Hillman, Assistant City Manager Sanders, our team at the Chamber, Mara's team at the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and if a project is looking within the Las Colinas boundaries, we engage Hammond and his team at the LCA. Day in and day out, we're pulling up the red tape to roll out the red carpet to be competitive to secure these opportunities to continue to come home to Irving. Small business, It's the backbone of Irving's economy. Appreciate those of y'all that have helped us not only celebrate Tourism Week, but it's Small Business Week in Irving. I just came from saying thank you to our small businesses with Chairman Lake. I know City Manager Hillman, Assistant City Manager Sanders, many of y'all have been out in the community dropping small resource bags to our small businesses to say thank you for having your business in Irving, for creating jobs for our residents and our community, but also serving our community. And really proud that that small biz program that we've launched over the last 8 years, at the end of this week, we will have said thank you to 8,000 small businesses. So Mayor and Council appreciate y'all for highlighting and supporting our small businesses. As we reflect on Q1 and Q2, we facilitated more than 1,700 business contacts and visits across all of our programs. So through our Economic Development Advisory Council, through sales tax, welcome letters, business connections, coffee breaks, our mixers, and then score counseling for entrepreneurs that are wanting to start a business. We've had the pleasure to interact with small businesses weekly. Site selection, we are the resource that provides site selectors the business intelligence for their customers that are looking to deploy capital and relocate employees to perform in communities that's ultimately going to help them meet and exceed their business needs. Our team was definitely on the road, activating and networking with site consultants in Florida, Georgia, through Consultant Connect, and then Site Selectors Guild. And keep in mind, when we interact with site selectors, interacting with one site selector is the equivalent of sitting down with 27 CEOs to tell our community story. And as investments happen in Irving and Irving continues to change and grow, we want to make sure they have the latest information about our community. On the business retention expansion side, again, 69 visits year to date, over 1,700 business contacts. I shared earlier we've delivered 15 retention wins. And then our team continues to drive opportunities to backfill our pipeline. So we're working on about 110 prospects since October 1, and then 47 of those are still active. So again, appreciate Diana's leadership and our business community that's always there to help us amplify and tell our story. Mayor, that really completes our Q1 and Q2 presentation and results. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions to Beth? David?
I'm not sure I have any questions, but thank you very much for the update and the presentation. You know, the maintaining the strong relationship and retaining companies in our city is tantamount, and it is a competitive environment. So that might be one question. Can you tell us a little bit more about the competitive market that you're dealing with day in and day out, not just in our Metroplex, but around the state and the country?
Yeah, so thank you, Councilman Pfaff. Retention is definitely the name of the game, especially when you're in a community where the majority of your tax base is commercial, and I've shared it many times from this podium. Other communities want what Irving has. Our customers fortunately share with us a lot of the marketing collateral from other communities. But within this region, our customers have choices. And I think the most recent example is, you know, a company to our east and an executive saying, you know, we need to make sure that we're located in a safe community. We need to be in a community where there is reliable infrastructure. We need to be in a community that has access to qualified workforce. I think for all of us in the profession, that was a wake-up call, but just very thankful to be able to work and represent a community where day in and day out, you as a council are making decisions to support Chief Miller or Chief Connolly to make sure we are a safe community. You're supporting City Manager Hillman and the team's Road to the Future plan to continue to invest in infrastructure. And then we're continuing to work to make sure to welcome individuals who want to relocate to Texas, specifically to the North Texas area, to be able to provide a pool of qualified workforce to our employers. And that is a daily job. That is a team effort. And our job is to make sure to continue to tell the story, share the factual opportunities with decision makers from CEOs to the real estate executives to HR professionals, site selectors, and commercial real estate brokers. And we do that day in and day out. In terms of the competition, it's fierce. Business industry and their workforce don't really see community boundary lines. They just see a flight to quality, opportunities where their workforce can have access to walkable amenities, and they want that, and they want it now. We have to continue to make sure we're amplifying the opportunities that we have in Irving that provide that, and then also generating other opportunities that want a little bit more privacy or land or have operations that might fit into different areas of our community, but still part of our target industry. We are competing with, communities that are have a larger purse to pull from, but I will just share our competitive advantage is our people, our team, the ability that any of the directors around the room or City Manager Hillman can pick up the phone and get a response, and business is a priority. In Irving, we know our businesses by name, and we do our best to quickly provide a response. It might not always be what business industry wants to hear, but it's a factual response, and it opens up the door for additional conversations. And we do that daily as a team. I don't know any other community out there where you have your elected officials, your government professionals, your chamber, your CVB at the same table, responding to opportunities and delivering results. And that happens right here at home in Irving.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Beth, I just would highlight, as I do, the retail components that everybody talks about wanting more retail, but if you look in Las Colinas area, it's 95.13. In Valley Ranch, it's 93.32. In South Irving, it's 96.3. And in Freeport, it's 98.66. So really the look for retail is hard to find because there's just not a lot of space that's available out there for that. And it always interests me that there's always the concern in the community of we need more retail. And there's only so much you can do at this point unless somebody builds something or refurbishes something that's already existing. So I wanted to make that point. Also, I've heard a lot of people concerned about the amount of warehousing that we're building in the city. And I think a lot of times people don't realize what's in the warehouses. I mean, if you really take the time and look at a few of those, you have the art facility here that was in New York is now here, their auction and their facility. Pratt & Whitney was a prime example of something that I was able to cut a ribbon on in November of this year, but they just now released because of the technicalness of what they do within that facility. But again, it's 500,000 square feet with another 250 high-end equipment, $250,000 a year plus jobs for the people that are in there. It looks like a warehouse. And we continue to see that where it may be a warehouse, but there's a lot more going on inside that warehouse than just storing parts and things of that nature, that there's really some high-quality jobs that are being performed within those. So just wanted to kind of talk about or bring that out to people to understand that while it may look like just a warehouse, there's a tremendous amount of things that are going on, and the inventory and things of that nature do a good job. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, I will just share, I know this is your last work session. It's truly been a pleasure over the last 9 years to work alongside you and the council and bring capital investment and jobs home to Irving, and we just appreciate the trust that y'all have in our team. But more importantly, thank you for making the time, readjusting your schedules, often during personal time, to show up for business, and just appreciate our incredible business leaders that are not only active on the chamber, but also active within the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And just our collaborative teamwork is a choice. And we really just appreciate your authenticity, Mayor, and service over the last 9 years for business industry.
Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Harry, did you have anything you wanted to add? Since you're the guy in charge for the year, you're one of the 30 or 40 bosses that Beth has.
Yep.
No, I don't have anything much to say except that, it's tough for Beth to sing her own praises, so I'll do that. I've had a great front row seat to see the good work that Beth and Diana and the rest of the team does at the chamber. I mean, it is a combat sport. I mean, you talked about, the competitive nature of it. I mean, you get sniped from different directions. You don't even know where it's coming from. People trying to take our key corporate citizens. And this team does a phenomenal job defending Irving and aggressively, recruiting these amazing companies from across not only the country, but the globe. I mean, we've got an Australian beverage company that's coming to town, a New Zealand beverage company, one of the largest Japanese-based financial firms coming to town. So that doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by effort. It happens because of a gargantuan effort on behalf of this team and the staff and everyone else. So that's the only thing I want to say is just great job, Beth, and your team. Fantastic work. That's it, Mary. And it's been an absolute pleasure. On a personal, because this is your last work session, thank you so much. I've been a beneficiary of your time and everything like that. My family is not where it's at without you personally, so thank you so much.
And I'll just also share congratulations to Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Kronowitz and Mayor-elect Zaponte. We look forward to continuing to work with y'all.
Well, Harry, I appreciate your perspective because I think sometimes we don't have people of your caliber that see the day in, day out what it takes to lease facilities and how many prospects come through and how you go through your weeding out of prospects and how you move forward in filling your building. So your perspective helps immensely for us to understand. We all assume and we know that Beth works hard and does a lot of good things, and we're all aware of that, but it's just your validation of it so that we know what's really going on out there, because I hear it from other people. I hear it from other mayors, I hear it from other city councils, I hear it from other city managers, but to have someone like you who's in the trenches every day to verify and to explain to us what's really going on, I really appreciate that. So thank you for being with us today. I know you've got other things you could be doing, like leasing some of your space.
There's leasing to be done, but yes, thank you so much. It's a privilege. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Maura. I always say guys, Beth. I apologize. I should. Maura, you got a good week going?
Yes, sir.
It's your
And
week.
guys works just fine for me. My parents were New Yorkers. We're all guys. So it's all good. So, we good? All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council, more guests. Thank you all for joining us for this little tasty celebration of National Travel and Tourism Week. You've got a little selection of sweet impact goodies at your places from a number of Irving Treats providers, just to talk a little bit about the wide range of impact this industry has on our community. I'm going to take a look at what's going on year to date, give you a little view from our world as to what the FIFA World Cup is looking like, share with you some information about our hotel needs right now, our next strategic planning process, and a few other updates. And as always, I am happy to take any questions or concerns or discussion. So our sales and marketing performance year to date, we are 6 months in. Just want to talk about two things on this slide. First of all, we have our new economic impact data, and those are some of the data points you see all around those great looking boxes at your places. But Our most current year's economic impact was a little bit over $4 billion, with a B, dollars in visitor spending. That's not an induced or indirect, that is direct economic impact. And when you take our net operating budget, which is our budget minus the subsidy for the convention center, those associated costs, that gives you a $476 return in visitor spending for every dollar that's invested in our tourism initiatives. The scatter map, which is what I call it, on the right hand of the screen, shows you all the places that our messaging, our websites, our social media, our advertising, all of those things in the past year, all the places throughout the city where folks have come through our channels to look at any of these other places in our city. So you can see that it really is throughout the city, in each of your districts, everywhere, businesses large and small, that are getting the benefit of these promotional efforts. As always, I started and forgot to recognize my board of directors that are here. They were all here earlier for the moment, but I want to thank all of them for being here, not only today, but also for all that they do. You know, a lot of small business owners there, so I love that these 2 weeks always coincide, because that's a lot of what makes up our industry. We see the big names on the hotel flags and tend to think about big companies, but the majority of the businesses in Irving that make up our visitor economy are small business. They are small owners that own the majority of our hotels, with a handful of exceptions, the Omni being one of those handful. Most of our hotel properties are owned by small companies. They're not owned by Marriott. They're not owned by Westin. They're not owned by the big brands. They're owned by small business owners or medium business owners. So with that redirect, I'll get back in here. So our room night pipeline, this is the sales efforts that our staff undertake, our sales staff are undertaking. We're very much a short-term market. We refer to it as in the year for the year, so it is not uncommon for businesses to be booking, particularly with business travel, within the week for the week, within the month for the week, for the month, and then within the year for the year. So you see that we still have business pending in our current year. That's not abnormal. And then you see, as we look more years out, that there's less in the pending columns, the lead columns, and less in the definites. That's very normal for us, so that's a good sign. Our leads, so the first slide was the actual room nights. This is the lead volume that each of those collections of room nights represents, and these are citywide in our hotels. And then the next opportunity is looking at the leads in our convention center pipeline. So in this case, you've got definites, tentatives, and prospects. Tentatives are ones where we've sent a contract, we're holding dates, and there's a contract and we're in the process of negotiating the contract. Prospect is just at the first outset of the dating game, if you will. We are holding space as a courtesy, but we're not to the point we are attracting a contract. Again, this looks like a fairly normal pace. Those groups that are the handfuls in the farthest years out, so looking at 29 and 30, those are primarily associations that are booking for their next 3, 4, and 5 years. They're in a rotation, but they're not ready to sign a contract yet, because signing a contract requires putting a deposit down. And we require, by the time your event actually happens and you are starting your load in, you are basically paid in full of all your anticipated expenses. And then anything else is just ancillary. So that's a good-looking pipeline for us and a fairly normal pipeline. It's not uncommon to see that many things in prospect phase that far out, because they're going to wait till the window gets closer to start paying deposits, those kinds of things. So on the marketing side, really good engagement on our website traffic and engagement, 601,000 active users, 400,000 engaged sessions, and we recently completed a website AI audit. So over the past 20 years, we've been optimizing our websites for search engines to find them, and now we are working through optimizing our websites for the large language models, whatever it is LLM stands for, that is guiding AI to be able to find our information. So that's going to be, much like the search engine optimization, a constant work in progress. But we just completed the audit. We've got some low-hanging fruit from doing that, and we will continue to refine that, and staff will continue to train on those opportunities. Our flagship leisure campaign, so this is kind of the ones we put the most resource into. That's our staycations campaign, primarily focused on the Dallas-Fort Worth region. generated 17,000 hotel referrals. Our entertainment hub of DFW, so we're targeting any events and activities happening in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and grabbing hold of those and encouraging people to stay in Irving regardless of what they're coming to the region to do. And then our seasonal campaigns, which take advantage of spring or summer or whatever the season is, to direct referrals. And those are referrals going to our hotels, but also, going back to the scatter map that was on the second slide, also our non-hotel partners. And then our Expedia partnership. This is really one of the best investments we can directly track the conversion to. So our investment in Expedia generated almost 26,000 room nights for $3.5 million in hotel revenue, giving us 100-to-1 return on our advertising spend with Expedia. We're really trying to look at things like this that perform incredibly well. They perform well because we can see that traction all the way through to a booking. Some of the advertising we do, particularly in our trade publications, don't have this kind of mechanism. They're there to build awareness so that as our staff is attending trade shows or making sales calls, that there's some awareness or identity of Irving in the first place, and it's not a completely cold call. And finally, I want to talk about the most romantic city in Texas. And no, the state legislature did not designate this. One of our creative marketing team members decided this was who we were going to be based on some of the other stories we've been able to share in the past. So we had a campaign earlier this year around Valentine's Day that dream wedding proposal. It generated almost 17,000 advertising clicks. We had 4,400 entries into Win the Dream wedding proposal. And we sent out emails to our subscriber database, and I just want to share with you the story that resulted.
Hold me close and hold me fast. This magic spell you cast. This is La Vie en Rose. When you kiss me, heaven sighs, and though I close my eyes, I see La Vie en Rose. When you press me to your heart, I'm in a world apart, a world where roses bloom. And when you speak, angels sing from above. Everyday words seem to turn into love songs.
Hi, madam. This is Angelica. I just proposed, and she said yes.
We met at work through a mutual friend who introduced us, and we've been inseparable ever since then. And we just welcomed our baby in January, so.
Hold me close and hold me fast. This magic spell you cast. This is La Vie en Rose. When you kiss me, heaven sighs, and though I close my eyes, I see La Vie en Rose. When you press me to your heart,
I didn't up until the ride, maybe because of the drones, but other than that, no, I didn't.
Camouflage the drone next
clammy.
time.
That was also another indicator. He was clammy.
I think I was looking at vacations, and it popped up, and knowing we're in Irving, I'm like, oh, a little staycation, especially with us having kids. It kind of seemed like more realistic than anything else, but I ask her every day if she wants to marry me, so I just don't know why it took so long for me to actually do it. So it really helped a lot from Visit Irving.
That was perfect.
give your heart and soul to me, and life will always be La Vie en Rose.
Oh, sweet. The fact that it turned out to be an Irving couple is just kind of one of those random things, but our team did a great job. We had great assistance from the Las Colinas Association helping get the word out about that, and just you saw all sorts of partners represented in that, so all of them stepped up to make that a really special occasion. So thank you all for letting me share that. Just a quick snapshot of our visitor economy performance study. We just updated this, as I shared earlier. We went back to the 2019 data. We were on such a great run going into 2020, and you can see how things fell off in 2020. So that fiscal year, we were just starting 6 months into the year when COVID shut everything down, and it took us a good 2 or 3 years to get things back. We're now back to a point where visitor numbers are ahead of where they were. We've got now the numbers are back in almost every category exceeding where they were prior, with the exception of jobs. Jobs really didn't move too terribly much, but we lost more than half of our jobs during COVID. We're just now recovering, and I think what you'll see is as is always the case, particularly with companies that just, once you figure out how to do the same, if not more with less, you tend to keep doing it. So I think we'll not see those numbers grow too terribly much in the next few years. Payroll has definitely increased. You all know that. You see that in your own businesses. Tax base is increasing. But most importantly, from your perspective, hopefully the savings per house because of that tax base. All the places to find us online, we're everywhere you want to look, with probably the exception of TikTok at this point. So let me talk really quickly about FIFA and the World Cup outlook, and there's a couple of different things going on here. So I'm just going to share some in general data first of all. Hotel room revenue was projected to grow 4.3% in 2026. This is below where it was projected a year ago, but most of what's happening right now is World Cup impacts that will drive some revenues in June and July. But revenues that are declining because of the oil price surge, because of a number of other things that are going on. Our Irving lodging forecast, May of last year, these numbers where they're projecting right now, so with the exception of average daily rate, both occupancy and revenue per available room is down from where these projections were a year ago. So a little more realistic outlook as we're getting close. So it's not just a FIFA impact here, but it is what's happening in the industry due to what's happening in the economy and due to what's happening in the world. So when we tried to figure out how to forecast for this year and World Cup, there really was not a model to go back to that looked at a World Cup that looked like this, one that was spread across 3 countries and how many destinations, one that had the suburban type of spread and impact that we do in Dallas-Fort Worth. So we had to really go back to the 2006 World Cup in Germany, the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, neither of which were three-country World Cups, but that was the best we could do to get a look at suburban impact. And so really a limited impact on room demand in previous World Cups, but what hotels have been able to do is drive rate. The most important thing to think about in terms of that driving rate, though, is there are certain groups of rooms that are blocked. Some of those will be more than 30 days and therefore will be hotel tax exempt. So a lot of the VIP groups, they're there for the duration of the tournament, wherever those hotels are. And then you'll have the shorter term in and out, so a fan coming for a particular match that arrives the day before, sees the match the next day, either gets out that evening or the next night. So limited stays, but those 10 or 12 or 20 nights are going to be at a really, really high rate. So in the Germany 2006 World Cup, the adjacent submarkets, which is what we're comparing ourselves here to in Irving, saw about 6.5% growth in average daily rate. Again, a little different animal than what's going to take place in Irving, but we really are expecting the efforts to be much more muted here. We have 3 times the number of hotel rooms in Dallas-Fort Worth than the Berlin area did. So that impact is going to be really, really spread out. And feels like every week right now, but at least every couple of weeks, FIFA is releasing rooms that they've been holding for the last several years. So the contracts, hotels across the 3 countries went into for FIFA groups, had a whole lot of outs that had no penalties for the hotels. They opted to sign those, so they know what they're getting into. But as the window gets shorter, thousands and thousands of rooms are being released. So there's a lot more availability in the market. That starts to drive the rate down from where it was very aggressive. We have some very, very small hotels in Irving that are part of the official transient room block that are asking for $750 a night right now. I would love to see that. That's going to make for a great June and July, but I think as the window gets closer, in order to put people in those rooms, those numbers are going to have to change. We are still anticipating double-digit growth in June and July because of that lift. So the contracted rooms as well as the transient rooms that do get consumed. But as I mentioned, not all of that is going to translate into hotel occupancy tax revenue. But here's what our hotels are seeing. Nearly 90% of them are working aggressively right now to find other business to fill the calendar in June and July. And that's really important. They have determined that they got to find something else to plug into those spaces, so they are looking for options other than World Cup travelers to fill those rooms. The challenge is that when groups were looking for rooms for this summer a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, nobody wanted to play because the rooms were going to be filled with FIFA. So there's not a lot of groups looking for placing business in this region this summer, and a lot of folks that might have been scared away by high rates or by concerns of an overcrowded marketplace because of FIFA. So we're seeing as much of a displacement effect as we are seeing on the booking side. So this was a survey of our hotels fairly recently. Nearly 45% believe their average daily rate will increase by more than 10%. So they're hoping they're going to land some rooms and that they'll still be able to drive rate because of what's happening in the marketplace. A small percentage believe that rate will decrease. Occupancy-wise, nearly half believe occupancy will stay flat. And I share that with all of you just because this comes down to what happens with hotel occupancy taxes that come in and therefore how it impacts the city's ability to make the debt service payments on its debt that is supported by hotel occupancy taxes. So that is the Toyota Music Factory, the Convention Center, and the Westin Headquarter Hotel. So on that needs analysis survey, at least thus far, 75% of our hotels have seen significant drop-offs in international travel, particularly from Canada and Mexico. 55% are not reporting any changes due to the stock market. That's a really, really good sign. Typically, we see this very differently. But we still have 45% that are anticipating some level of decline. Weekend dates are still where they need help. Sports, SMERF is social, military, educational, religious, and fraternal organizations, so they tend to be volunteer-driven. And the leisure markets are where more demand is needed. This next item is really important. 20% of our respondents are noting a possible flag change in the next 1 to 2 years. That is potentially a good news thing, but likely not because of the economy, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then the Kay Bailey Hutchison Dallas Convention Center has currently closed almost all of its space except for what it is using to house the World Cup Media Center. So that lack of activity in the Dallas Convention Center means there's a whole lot more competition for groups that might otherwise come into Irving or be pushed out to Irving. So we're competing a lot more for really small groups for our downtown Dallas hotels who are accustomed to 20,000, 40,000 person conventions. Now they're chasing the same 400 person groups that we chase as always. And then we just have the decline in groups as usual, which is part of that. Kind of people are avoiding the World Cup markets because of concerns about expense or concerns about crowding. So then going into our next strategic plan, all of you were part of a series of interviews last fall with our team from Clarity of Place as our board starts to map out what the next iteration of Irving as a destination might look like, looks at what are the needles that need to be moved from an economic standpoint, and then what it will take for us to move those needles. What we heard from residents is that there was a high awareness of a lot of the attractions in Irving. However, there was not a lot of visitation. There was a priority for culinary and experiential amenities for future development. High-end food and art festivals were well supported, as well as premium sporting events and youth and amateur sports facilities. Your residents are drawn to the city's location and accessibility that really outpaced all the other attributes that were referenced. And our residents had identified improving amenities as the most significant opportunity for improving their quality of life. Ultimately, we want visitors to pay for this stuff, so we need to make sure what we heard from residents will be echoed by visitors, but that's part of the next steps of this journey. Excuse me, just did that. Also, strong support for tourism, so that's wonderful. Some of our colleagues have residents using the phrase over-tourism. I hope one day in my career that we get to say that here in Irving, that we are over-visited. We're not there quite yet, but our residents think tourism is important and that it's good for Irving and that the positives of it outweigh any possible negatives. And they support new tourist attractions and believe there should be more development or hosting of major events to bring tourists here. Unique assets, this is from our stakeholder group, so this includes all of you around the horseshoe as well as industry and partners. These are the things that were identified as Irving's unique assets. I don't think there's anything here you guys haven't seen before, but it is all those things that make us special and make us different from our colleagues around Dallas-Fort Worth and elsewhere that we compete with. And this kind of was the summary statement, that Irving is a great place, but there's not enough there yet to get us on a bucket list travel list, and that's what we want to grow into. And the things that we have not yet been translated into an experience that's both cohesive and compelling. We work well as a place for business. It's that non-business piece that we need to more clearly define. And when asked to describe our identity as a destination, it was really hard to get something other than convenience and business travel out of it. There's nothing wrong with convenience in business travel. We love business travel because it's other people spending other people's money, and we spend far differently with a corporate credit card than we do our own. But we want more of a description for us to be more than just convenient. And our assets across the city, which are many, are just disconnected. They depend on cars, that's Texas, and in many cases underactivated. Opportunities, an anchor attraction or attractions, activating more the existing assets we have, finding ways to make Irving those assets more walkable and easily accessed, identifying signature events. I know that's been a conversation we've had for at least the 35 years that I've been here, but it's still a priority. Activating the water. We have water throughout the city, which is accessible, and that's something we got to figure out how to take advantage of. And then arts and cultural activation, especially as it relates to dining and food. Now, this one is not glamorous or exciting, but I think it's really, really important. And I mentioned the note earlier about hotels potentially changing flags. We really have two distinct corridors of our hotel product. We have kind of the corporate and convention corridor, which is the 114 and 635 area, and the more airport and transit corridor, which is 183. And it's that 183 corridor that we're most concerned about, although this issue impacts everything. A lot of what's on that corridor is first generation, so it is older product, it's budget oriented and mid-range, which is important because we need a product for every price point, but it's very appealing then to price sensitive customers. Our biggest concern over the long term is the pricing spiral. We have 91 hotels, we have almost 14,000 hotel rooms. The average age of our hotels is almost 28 years, and 78.5% of our hotel rooms are more than 20 years old. That's a significant concern because what happens, these are small businesses, as hotels age, as anything ages, as any of us age, keeping up with replacement parts, keeping up with improvements takes longer and is more expensive. And if you're running a small business with a very, very tight margin and you have to make decisions about where you're going to invest, it will not be unlikely for you to choose to invest in a lesser franchise fee. And a lesser franchise fee is going to be a lesser flag, and a lesser flag is going to command a lower rate, and a lower rate is what's going to create a pricing spiral. And lower prices do not fix the problem. They might be good for short-term cash, but they often make it worse because everybody else feels the need to follow suit. It takes us about 6 months for the average daily rate to drop. It takes us about 6 years for it to come back. So these are the things that we're trying to figure out as we look to the future. How do we right-size future hotel development in Irving? So that's why we get so protective about the types of new hotels that want to come into Irving. Everybody wants to come in here. We've got a killer location. We've got a great corporate base. But there is risk associated with too much product that does not generate demand of its own. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at is how do we support here. So there's 3 primary ways to help drive stability and longer-term success. We're going to look at a hotel reinvestment incentive program. We want to look at adding something new that would create incremental weekend demand and then do what we can to protect the strong core, which is that Monday through Thursday business traveler of all budget size. Keeping our hotel development standards high remains really, really important. More of the same does not equal better. And then preventing decline will be far more effective and impactful than just reacting to it. Hotel performance directly affects the city's finances and its debt service. The biggest risk is slow long-term erosion of revenue, but that revenue erosion also means the corridor erodes and it means your neighborhood integrity is challenged. So we have a number of projects still in progress from our 21-26 strategic plan, working to get our technology fund balance up to $1 million, creation of a tourism public improvement district, and supporting legislative initiatives that allow Irving to capitalize on all the tools that are out there for visitor development. So our timeline and next steps on that plan. Studies were conducted all of last year and into the spring of this year. You all were part of the stakeholder interviews in November. We just held the board strategic planning retreat for a day and a half a couple of weeks ago. We've got working sessions of our committees for May, June, and July. We will put a placeholder, we will propose a placeholder in our budget to you in a strategic plan implementation fund. Our board expects to adopt the plan at their July board meeting, and the plan will go into effect beginning fiscal year 26. And then just a couple of other updates, a little show and tell. Our chef, Eduardo Alvarez, who's been with us since we began, was recently recognized by Trade Show Network News in their inaugural class of 50 over 50. So we're finally getting some older people awards, so yay for us. I'm waiting for 60 over 60. And then our teams both recently won the Fired Up Culture Achievement Awards. We have been working with Fired Up since coming out of COVID, both the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Convention Center teams on office culture, employee engagement, all of those kinds of things, which are the intangibles that make all the difference. And for the first quarter, they go on a calendar quarter. A calendar year. Both ICVB and ICC organizations each won this award. We've each won it 1 or 2 times each on our own separately, separate quarters, but this is the first time that we both did that, and I'm really proud of our teams because they've taken this opportunity and really brought it to life. And then Luke Bauer, who's one of our event managers and one of the handful of folks on our team with not a lifetime of tenure, keeps our average age, tenure age a little bit younger, was recently named a 30 under 30 finalist for the International Association of Venue Managers. So we're really proud of Luke and of Chef Eduardo and of all the team. Just some recent projects. We just finished our new distributed antenna system installation. It is a neutral host that AT&T provided. The little image of the round thing in the upper right-hand corner of the slide is a Ericsson, we call them puck, they call them discs. You'll start to see them if you're looking for them on all the walls and in the ceiling at the convention center to provide for better access. We took the old enterprise rental car space as well as an unused space adjacent to it. They no longer need the storefront presence that they used to. They're still delivering cars and picking up cars out of our garage, but they're not going to provide a daily office operation anymore. So we launched the Mustang Market there. That is a grab-and-go kind of convenience stand. So even when our concession stands might not be operating or a group is moving in or moving out, it is a very smart little convenience store that you grab your items off the shelves or out of the refrigerator or from the coffee thing. You put it on the scale thing, computer magic happens, it automatically totals it, and you take your things and you're on your way. On really large-scale events, we launched this in January. It's pretty much already paid for itself, thanks to the large-scale events. We've had to replace 2 boilers. The building is 15 years old. It gets a lot of use. We are replacing yet another cooling tower. The pads underneath the cars and the west end elevators need replacing. This is in the garage. Thankfully, those are covered by warranty. We've noticed recently a curvature in the floor of the 4th floor grand ballroom, so we've got an engineering firm scheduled to come out and see what is going on there, and then we'll figure out a plan from there. And then the company you used to know as SMG is now part of a bigger company called ASM Global. We're now Legends Global. So a really big portfolio. They have just undertaken a sustainability audit, and the Irving Convention Center scored 2nd highest in their convention center portfolio and was the highest score in the U.S. So those are good things that we're doing to make sure we can take care of the planet as well as the place. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Questions of Maura? David.
Thank you, Mayor. And first of all, I need to thank Councilman Canosa. He traded me the macaroons for the 7-layer bar, which is my favorite. Appreciate the snack pack here. So thank you, Councilman Canosa.
So no macarons for you for the future.
And then that's great, Chef Eduardo. I still don't know how you feed such great food to everybody in there every time. So it's a
He's
great
the
job.
man.
So he is the man. So I had a question over you talked about flags and properties. What is kind of the control over a flag of a private hotel? Do we have any leeway here at the city to help, or?
I don't know yet, and that's kind of what we're going to dig into. I'm going to reach out to a couple of the hotel owners in the community, as well as Sushil Patel, whose family, the State Bank of Texas, does a lot of hotel work, and just sit down with them and say, what are the kinds of things we can look at that can make a difference? The flags, the brands put in place, what the performance standards are, and that performance is as much about aesthetics as it is about financial. So it is not uncommon for a property to get a performance improvement plan. Those are really, really expensive things. You have to do this to keep the flag. One of the other challenges we're running into is during COVID, a lot of hotels refinanced at really, really low rates. And most of those notes were 5, 6, and 7 years and are all coming due at much, much higher rates. So that's going to be a challenge. There's also some really transitional things happening within the hotel ownership industry, particularly in some of these smaller properties, where it's often sometimes it's a first generation, sometimes it's a second generation that currently holds the asset, and the third generation doesn't want to be in a 24/7 day job environment anymore. So they're looking at transitioning those properties into senior housing or multifamily or something else that may be the next iteration of certain things, which will also create another set of transitions. So those are all some of the things. Most of the large hotel companies have moved out of the ownership position and into the franchise position so that they don't have the asset on their books other than for the performance. And as a franchisee, you're not only paying the fees for the franchise, you're paying fees to have the 1-800 brand name number. You're having fees for the reservation system. You're having all of these other fees that you're having to pay out in order to be affiliated with the brand, and that's not getting any less expensive. And the big companies are no longer in the real estate ownership business. They're in the management business and the flag business. And that's another sea shift happening that's going to change what this looks like in 5 and 10 years, not to mention 20.
Yeah, I look forward to kind of bringing the mini tours to the hotel of figuring out, because a lot of, facade programs we do and all this.
Yes.
Is we don't know what the return's ever going to be on that. Right. But when we can see incremental return on flag changes or things like that, that'd be very interesting. Also was a little bit of question on the K. Bailey Hutchison. I didn't know that would impact us, but it's a regional impact when things like this happen.
Yeah, and not only is that happening, but Fort Worth is closing theirs down in pieces. Corpus, San Antonio, Austin, and Houston are all in the process of closing their convention centers over the next 2 or 3 years to do massive improvements. And so that's just going to chase a lot of business out of Texas for the next several years, and then that creates an even more extended compression issue.
Okay. Well, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Maura? Maura, thank you, as always. Appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you
You
all.
also have a board chair here as well, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me a few minutes. I'm going to take a chapter from Harry, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Mara. But before I do that, I wanted to start my remarks with 2 words for you: blessed and fortunate. And I'll go into a little more detail about what that means. So for me, I have a fairly unique perspective, being the chair of the Irving 5-Star Chamber and also being the current chair of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so not many people have that breadth of experience. So when blessed comes to mind, I really want to let everyone know that we are blessed to have Maura and Beth Bowman, 2 dynamic leaders in this community. I have had the ability to see them work together on a regular basis, and they get so much accomplished behind the scenes that no one in this room is aware of. And we really are fortunate to have them both as part of this community and in the jobs that they're in. The second thing I want to mention regarding fortunate is everyone around this table. Irving is fortunate to have a mayor and council who understand business, they understand what happens in the community, they understand what happens at the convention center level, and fortunate because not all communities have that. Fortunate that we have just a terrific community overall, and fortunate that we have members of our community that make up the board of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, that make up the board of the Irving 5-Star Chamber, and that shows a real commitment to the overall community, and we're fortunate to have all of that. Mayor, we do want to thank you and council for all of what you have done during your whole tenure and 9 years as mayor. Council, we want to thank you for all the support that you give to both the Chamber and the Irving Convention and Visitors Bureau. Mayor-elect Zapanta, we look forward to continuing to work with you and all the support that you give, because you have been the liaison for the Irving Convention and Visitors Bureau. You keep us updated on a regular basis, and you keep us all informed as to how we can continue to move forward from a leadership standpoint. And finally, for all the council, the Irving Convention and Visitors Bureau would like to offer you guys to come to our executive committee meetings whenever you are available. That might be better for your schedules. Our next committee meeting is Friday. It's from 9 to 10. You will get an in-depth knowledge about the financials, okay? You'll get an inside view of what's going on in the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as we would offer anyone a tour who would like to take advantage of that. The last thing I'll mention is one of my key initiatives is to get the council more involved with what's going on at the convention center. I have asked the board of directors, we've made some assignments to several of you. They'll be reaching out to you to invite you to any meetings, for any tours, and for lunch on us. And then we will continue to provide education to each of you. We realize we have some new council members. Not everyone is up to speed on what's going on and what it takes for a Convention and Visitors Bureau to operate, and we want to continue to expand your knowledge base. So thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes to provide these remarks.
Thank you, Sam. We appreciate that. Maura, as always, great presentation. Look forward to continuing to work together.
Hey, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Al.
Maura. Thank you.
So close.
Stockyards and what they're doing out there, and also with their Fort Worth center in downtown. And then, but I don't sense we're really understanding what Dallas is doing with Fair Park. And those are kind of two hubs that really, I think, would be interesting to see how we can learn or actually connect. And so, do you have a comment on that?
Just one that is connected to the two different things. Both Fort Worth and Dallas were able to get project financing zone legislation through the state legislature. It's one of those tools that is not available to Irving yet. It's only been offered a city at a time, so I talked earlier about making sure Irving has access to all the tools. That's one of them. That's how Fort Worth was able to build Dickies Arena. That is how Dallas is doing the convention center expansion. It's how Fort Worth, it's how San Antonio, Houston, Austin, and Corpus Christi are. It gives you the state share of the sales and hotel taxes generated by a specifically defined project for 30 years, and that can make a huge difference. Where that and it's limited to convention center, arena, stadium, and one other thing like that. So the language is very specific. It gives you a 3-mile radius around that where the state taxes are available. So where the physical project, so let's just say the arena or convention center is located, it's from that spot on a parcel 3 miles around, so that can make a lot of difference in because it's not just of the project, the hotel revenues, it's the hotels in that 3-mile radius. So it can generate a lot of revenue over a very long term and make a difference for a project like Dallas. When you talk about Fair Park separate from the convention center, what Dallas did was use that tool for both. What's happening in Fair Park, it's reverted back to the Dallas Parks facilities they had outsourced it briefly. It's at least come back short term. They are starting from scratch in trying to figure out what Fair Park as the big physical asset should be. That's not a simple solution. There's a lot that needs to be thought through with that. They want green space, they need state fair space, but they're trying to figure out what else to do with that very large real estate asset. With Fort Worth, the stockyards, Fort Worth has had the benefit of legacy philanthropic gifts that are generations and generations and generations. What's happening in the stockyards right now is amazing because there's a huge investment going into there that's going to make the stockyards a much more accessible, a much more contemporary, a much more enjoyable experience. But it's very much a defining experience for Fort Worth. The stockyards, their museum district near where Dickies is, and now downtown, all are very physically different structures and animals, but they're also distinct experiences. They're not easily connected by car or train or shuttle, and yet they're defining enough that people are willing to make the travel happen to do all of those things when they're here. So they're doing a lot of things that's going to make them even more competition, certainly for us, but they're moving into a space that's much bigger than anything we have. But they'll be much more of a competitor for Dallas. They'll be much more of a competitor to San Antonio. And Panther Island, that's not even including what can happen on Panther Island down there if they'll just kind of let that plan settle for a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm glad because I've been thinking about it. You and I have had some discussions on how we do this. We've got an asset that is sitting there that I'm not sure we can't really do more with it, and that is the whole decurred operation, the canals, Lake Caroline, and all the waterways. Nobody has that. And yet we're located where the Convention Center, Toyota Music Factor, factory and where we may be with PUD 6. It seems to me that that whole, what I keep calling an entertainment district, which you and I have talked about, to me, that's really where we have to go to really have the ability to blow it up, let's put it that way. Because when I look at what they're doing at Fair Park, that's years away. When I look at what they're doing at the Stockyards, they're pretty well defined in what they can or can't do. We've got bits and pieces that if we can have a strategy, because I know you're thinking about it, because that's something to kind of talk a little bit about, because it's important for people to hear what some of the process of how we get there.
Yes, sir. And let me take the PUD 6 element first, just because the stadium site, which the city controls, is raw, and it's entirely in the city's control there. So that's where a tool like a project financing zone, if you have the right kind of project, can make sense and can make the difference with putting a deal together and minimize, what else is needed to put the deal together. There's not really a place left in the urban center where that project financing zone could now deliver a thing. I don't think there's enough real estate left to do that. You have a handful of parcels in the core, but they're not big enough to accommodate a project large enough to meet at least the current letter of the law. And we would also need to make sure that we get, first we have to get Irving in the legislation, and then we can figure out how we use those tools, but we're going to have some ideas of what a project might be in order to make the case, I think, to get in the legislation. And we're going to be having that legislative conversation, as you all well know. At the same time, the state is looking at those tools that do exist, that a handful of cities are allowed to use, and realizing they've given up 30 years of the state's share of revenues, and potentially tamping down that access or putting it on hiatus. So making sure that Irving gets what other cities get, whatever that looks like. There's other cities that are going to try for it this next session. So aligning ourselves with some of those other communities will become important, but also making sure we have that push for us by ourselves. So I think we need to, and you hear this from the city manager all the time, we need to take good care of the things we have and make sure they're continually refreshed and replenished, just like you all did with the Toyota Music Factory and reinvesting. We can't be one and done with anything we do. We have to keep, Beth referenced the flight to quality. We have great office buildings, we have great hotels, we've got a great asset in the Music Factory and the Convention Center, but somebody somewhere is always building something else, the next generation, the next iteration, and we have to not keep up with, but do better than. We spend $1 million to $2 million a year taking care of the Convention Center. You are not going to hear ever that there has been deferred maintenance in the Convention Center, and that's a priority for me, it's a priority for Chris, it's important for us in our budget that we take care of this asset and that we never let happen to it what has happened in other assets around the county.
Thank you. I wanted you to expound on that, because at the end of the day, we can't just keep, how do I want to put it, rehashing where we are. Because somebody somewhere else is going to start looking at competition.
Lowe's is getting ready to add a third hotel in Arlington.
Yep.
It's 3 hotels now that the Lowe's brand, which hasn't been in Dallas-Fort Worth in decades, was previously the Lowe's Anatole. Hasn't been a Lowe's in decades, but Lowe's, now they got significant incentives to do it. But they're now going to have 3 properties in Arlington. Roanoke is I think they're going to finally get it done, a small hotel and conference center in Roanoke. Not a big competitor to ours, but it will be a competitor to our older hotels with meeting space. And it's not that much, it's the same airport people are going to fly into, they're just going to go 20 minutes in a different direction to get there. So we have to keep, and that's just looking at Dallas-Fort Worth. McKinney's getting an airport. McKinney, now, they're not going to have the type of air service we have at DFW, but they're going to have some service, they're going to have some appeal, and they're getting a lot of new things, shiny things in McKinney. And now the expense of transportation from DFW Airport to McKinney will be mitigated. So that becomes yet another stick somebody else has that we're going to have to figure out how to combat differently.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
All right. Thanks, Maura. We'll go ahead and go to the regular agenda next. Item 2 and 3 are work session meetings from April 16th and regular meeting minutes. Item number 4 is a resolution approving a letter to letter of authorization between the City of Irving and the North Central Texas Council of Governments for the Regional Stormwater Management Program, authorizing funding in the amount of $10,000 for the fiscal year 2026 Regional Stormwater Management Program. Item number 5. David, you got your light on from before?
Oh, no, for 5.
5? 5 is a resolution considering the termination of the fiscal year 2025-2026 Community Development Block Grant Agreement between the City of Irving and Volunteers of America, Inc.
Yeah, and Philip, is this one for you? Because they were a big sponsor of the golf tournament that was here for, I think, the LPGA. Are they active in the community anymore, or?
We have a presentation on that. I think
Yeah,
if,
I read through the presentation. I didn't really need to go through the whole presentation, just really a question, are they active in our community?
I'm not familiar with any
Okay.
activity aside from this grant, but
And maybe, I was just wondering if.
yeah, I'm not familiar with any
Because
other.
they had a big presence during the golf tournament, which they put on that LPGA golf tournament here for many years. I just hadn't heard hide nor hair of them since then.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with anything else,
Okay,
Councilman.
thank you.
Dennis?
Yeah, I just got one question. So the money that came back, is it earmarked for anything right now, or will that be open up to like nonprofits, or what's the situation
Yeah,
with that?
it
money?
hasn't been earmarked for anything. It'll go back into the CDBG bucket, and it'll be programmed for other uses.
Okay, all right.
In other words, yes, Dennis. In other words, yes. Item number 6 is a resolution authorizing payment to Tyler Technologies in the amount of $431,696.82 for enterprise resource planning for software annual maintenance. Item number 7 through 13 are the bids. David, which one would you like to know about?
7 first.
7 first. This is approval of vendor contract pursuant to the cooperative purchase agreement. Melissa, you got this one?
Good afternoon, Mayor. I do. Melissa Baker, Public Works. I am very pleased to be here in front of you today. This has been a multi-departmental effort, so I would like, if you would indulge me, just to give thanks to all the people that are involved in this. It is a multi-team project. The city manager's office, the city attorney's office, Zach and KO for all of the agreements and several meetings that we had and negotiations. Our public works team, Dan, our department director, Nathan, Stephanie, everybody for countless hours in the office and then driving. I think everybody has driven the circulator at this point. Mara and her ICVB team, just tremendous help on that and site locations. Philip and his team reaching out to the Music Factory team as well. Rachel's team, everywhere from Joe to April, Heather, Saul, and Rachel herself for helping us out on that as well. And then the finance team, Brett, Brad, we've got everybody on board on this. So thank you to everybody. It's been a lot of time, so we appreciate everybody. Just to go back forth, here we go. What I'm here today to talk about is the proposed enhancements to the transit services. We have 3 different components I'm going to lay out, 2 of which you're familiar with, and then 1 is going to be a new component. So the Irving Connector, Route 225, you'll see here on the side, on the right-hand side, it would be 2 15-seat Ford Transits. Those would be set up in a 9-1 combination so that it would be ADA compliant and wheelchair accessible. We'd be looking at those hours right there, mimicking the DART route. We're looking at 27 stops. The frequency is 35 to 60 minutes. We're estimating that at this current time. The $3 rider fare, we tried to keep this at a same operating hours, fare, stops, and frequency as DART, mimicking those services and enhancing them is really the goal. The stops, now, they may be adjusted as needed. This is a pilot preliminary project, so you'll see as we go through here, there are stops, but those are preliminary. We're going to move on to the second component, and you'll be reminded that this is one of the DART lines that we did have that was discontinued. Irving Connector Route 255, so you'll see that name. Thank you to April's team for that name. Again, we're looking at the 2 15-seat Ford Transit, the same setup, 9-1, ADA compliant. You'll see the same hours right there, 26 stops estimated. Same operating hours, fare, stops, and frequency as DART. Try to keep that comparable as well. And again, the goal is to enhance this route as well. Just wanted to give another shout out to April's team and the VIA team that's over here. We're going to introduce them here in a second. For these graphics, you've got the Irving Connector, 225 right there, and then again the Irving Connector, 255. Moving on to our third component here. This would be the circulator. So this is a new portion of the pilot project. I'll leave it up here. These stops are preliminary. You know, we will be looking at the ridership data and analytics that come out of VIA. We are going to be taking in some more stakeholders' feedback before you'll see the operation timeline I'm going to go over in a slide here in a couple seconds. But before that operational time period happens, we are going to be taking in some more feedback on these sites. So Dan's crew went out there. I know that they've been working very closely with Mara's crew and the Music Factory as well. So I think this has been a diligent effort, but we are also going to be taking in that feedback. Just leave that up there. Those are your 11 stops that we currently are proposing. Irving Connector, circulator system, or figure 8. Again, one 15-seat Ford Transit. Your service times are up there, and those are preliminary. Those are preliminary. We're going to look at the analytics when they come back. 11 stops. The frequency, we're going to err on the 15 minutes to 30 minutes, obviously, depending upon how many stops we finalize. You know, will be dependent on that frequency. Free for riders, complimentary service. And the stops may be adjusted after we get that stakeholder feedback, and then, of course, after the first year analytics. Beautiful. Timeline, I want to just discuss a little bit of this and then some of the DART feedback that we've done. Timeline March, we discussed the proposed projects with DART, sent over the project information. No DART proposals had been submitted to the City of Irving. We did our work session in March. In March, April, staff did meet with DART, and we discussed the GMP funding, disbursement, actually. It should be disbursement. We discussed that with them. Addition to that, we had several staff members attend 2 different trainings for GMP funding, both from Public Works City Manager's Office as well as Finance. So we have several now on staff, trained staff members to do that GMP funding. May 7th council meeting. And then on the implementation, we're looking at 30 days from the contract signature for the connector to 25255, and then July 6th as the operational timeframe for that Irving Connector loop. Just want to briefly go over the cost estimate breakdown that you have related to the item that's coming before you tonight. That's a 1.7. I do really want to stress that we have met with DART as it relates for the disbursement. We will be filing that as it relates to the project submittal to get that disbursement for this funding. I'd be pleased to take any questions.
David, you have to follow up.
You answered all my questions, so thank you. I was just making sure that on the route stops for the circulator, that those were not fixed yet. And
No, sir, not fixed.
all right.
Not at all. And I
And that the July 6th date of doing that, we're going to miss out a little bit of the World Cup. Is that of any importance to us or not?
This is a preliminary pilot project, so we wanted to start specifically during that time period and kind of see where we're going with it.
Okay,
And see the demand, but we're projecting a really good demand. And I did need to introduce VIA, and if there's any questions for them as well. Thomas, could you just stand up? And Aaron, Principal Partnerships, and then the Director over DFW Operations are here if you have any direct questions for them as well.
Al.
Thank you, Mayor. Melissa, one of the things that I'd like us to interject in here as on the planning going forward, I was at our DCURD meeting last week, and I talked to them and showed them this map. And they got very excited of how they might be able to work with it, and I did the same with LCA.
Okay.
Those are two partners we need to then connect.
Yes.
Why? People, potential public-private partnerships, there's a whole area that we're gonna just build upon our connector as well as connecting up the two routes. I just think we ought to really use what we have to really kind of fit some of the things that Maura and I were starting to get into. Okay?
Absolutely, sir. The
Thank you.
connection, yes.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you. And I know Chris has worked for a long time on the circulator. This is something that's not been just like brought up in the last year or so. It's been years in discussion, and glad to see VIA come on board to where it can actually become a reality. For Thomas, is that right? I had a question for you. So there's been some discussion about them going like outside of the actual, just the loop around the lake, like maybe on the west side of 114 or maybe on the north side of Northwest Highway. As you're acquiring your data, I mean, are you going to be able to take that into account as well about whether it makes sense to jump over it on the west side of 114 or north side of Northwest Highway?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely. So we will have all of that data collected, and then what we have internally is, we refer to it as our service design team. They are dedicated specifically to that. So basically looking at what we envision for, the onset of the pilot and then validating as we go, frankly, on a weekly basis, do we need to make adjustments? It's very easy for us to do any of those future iterations if the data supports it.
Well, that's great. That's something, obviously we're not getting from DART. And so to be able to get the data for you for the circulator and for the two bus routes, that's going to be enormously helpful in the future. So look forward to getting some of that information. Thank you.
Dennis?
Yeah, I got a question concerning the circulator. So I noticed we've got one 15-passenger Ford van. So say you get out there and first day, after about a week, you realize that you're not even picking up half the people with the one 15-passenger van. So would you then add another one, or to keep up with the, service needs? And if you add another one, would that be an increased cost, or is that baked into this cost here, the potential of another one?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have within our fleet, beyond the one peak vehicle that we've allocated, we do have a spare vehicle available. Again, this is a pilot, so we don't have data at this point.
Right.
But what we have done in modeling this circulator, it's a fairly small loop. We are confident that we will meet what we think a baseline of demand will be. If we find that we're seeing a surge in demand, ultimately it's a bit of a policy decision. So we'll be benchmarking and updating on a weekly basis, what trends we're identifying. If, for instance, we find that, hey, the demand is outpacing the supply, we'll bring that information to you and we'll follow your lead. We'll basically give you options. Number one, if you say, listen, we do not want to increase the vehicle supply, we do not want to increase the spend, that's fine. We can easily manage that. The lever we'll pull is effectively the wait time. We'll reduce the frequency slightly so that, we're able to basically stay within the budget. Alternatively, if you were to say, hey, we want to meet that additional demand, we don't want anyone who's interested in a ride to have to wait longer, we can model out what it would look like to bring in additional vehicle hours. And ultimately, another important thing, you're only going to pay for the vehicle hours that were actually used in service. So if you were to give us that policy directive and say, hey, let's allocate some additional hours, we'll still be managing that as a steward of, the city's budget.
Yeah, and I understand it's a small loop, but that's a very dense loop. When you're talking about shows at the pavilion, when you're talking about convention center patrons, and when you're talking about all those people that live around in those apartments, that's a very dense loop of people that could be, really creating a demand, for more than just one vehicle. So, so after you find out maybe that it's not meeting the demand, and then you come to us and say, okay, if you want to keep up with the demand, which is what we want to do, this is now your new cost.
If you wanted us to increase the scale of the pilot, yes, we would model that out for you and show you. It would effectively still honor the same hourly rate. We would just show, okay, based on your new goal of, the additional supply you'd like us to provide, we anticipate that it will be, 60% of an additional vehicle. So we might use another 60% of vehicle hours for that demand. We would give you that, and it would ultimately be your decision if you'd like us to allocate that to the project.
Well, yeah, the goal would be to meet the demand, so I just want to make sure that, because, I could see this, been a lot of people. And at least I know that if we would have to meet the demand, it's going to be an extra cost for us, okay?
David?
What size vehicles do you have in other cities? Because this is 15 passenger. Do you have bigger, smaller? What's?
Yeah, we have a range. The majority of our other deployments, particularly in the region, we use smaller vehicles. Pretty standard for us is about a 6 to 7 passenger minivan. Aaron leads our operations regional, so he knows more than I on that. But, it varies. We do have markets where we use full 40-foot buses, but it's really a question of trying to balance ability to meet demand and also have something that is operationally nimble and efficient for kind of that municipal setting that we're looking at here.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Councilman Webb, if we do need additional vans, we do have money available in the GMP, depending on Chris, if he wants to spend it that route, but it will not impact the general fund. But I think right now this is a pilot program, so we do not know exactly what's going to happen. So we'll just go out there and run this for 3 months, go from there. Same thing with 255 and 225. And also want to acknowledge Chief Miller. He's also participating in this as well for the safety aspect. So that was one thing that I do want to recognize him for his participation in this.
Any other questions? No, I think it's you all have done a lot of great work in other cities to help set up routes. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing, is to actually set the routes up where the people want you to be. And I think that's what you're going to find out on the 2 routes, 255 and others, is you'll find where the residents really want to get on the vehicles, or where they'll conjugate, or where they'll be at, so you can make sure you have the ability to pick them up. I also think with the people mover, I'm like, our hope has always been, it's been one of those challenging things. The concept originally that Mr. Carpenter did, I remember when I first came here 30-some years ago, we used to pay $1 to ride on it. It was like something and everybody, and they circulated quite a bit. Of course, they had great boats that we paid $1 to ride on too, but I think the real issue is, how do you get the people from where they are to where they want to be? And that's, to me, and I say this all the time, and a lot of them get mad at me, but today the younger generation will spend $200 to $500 a month to belong to a gym. And then they go in the gym and work out. But they're not going to walk. They're not going to walk to dinner. They're not going to walk to anything else. They already worked out. And my generation was, if you wanted to work out, you walked. So I think there's a whole different component here that people, and there's that multifamily, you've got probably 5,000 people around that little loop over there, that potentially, if they knew that they could get over to the Music Factory or to Water Street, that by just popping on something with their friends, I think it'll be a home run. But that's what our hope is, that we can do that. And then the next thing that they want to look at is is there a way to integrate this into the people mover, which then could go between buildings for business and stuff. Right now, I think what we're trying to accomplish is getting people to and from the multifamily into the restaurants and the retail, and to the events at Levy Plaza and things of that nature, so that we at least get the people that live this close to understand what's next door to them, to go eat, to go work out, to do, bike. There's all kinds of shops of all different types down in the urban center. So to me, it's going to be interesting and I know you all do a great job of doing your research, so you'll be knocking on doors, you'll be checking with people, you'll be looking at the retail components as well as the residential component, and I think that's the key. We hope it, but then we don't know what the customers really want. I mean, we thought when we spent, hundreds of millions of dollars to put the Orange Line in, and with the two stops in the convention center and at the other middle of the urban center, that there'd be hundreds of people that would ride that every day because they have to come into the urban center to work. And that never worked out really to that level. So I like the idea that it's a test pilot to really see what people will or won't do and how we can, if nothing else, encourage them. I would, since I'm not going to be around, I'm going to give some advice, right, wrong, or indifferent. But I would, based upon, what you find as far as ridership, there may be an opportunity to get with the restaurants at the Music Factory and the restaurants in Water Street and see if there's some type of incentive they could give to each of those apartments to actually get the people out of those apartments to go try their product. And if it doesn't really, if we don't get enough ridership, we just got to figure out, because you got 3 million square feet of office space. You got a convention center that's busy all the time. You got Live Nation that's doing 80 to 100 shows. Punchline's doing a big deal as well. And you got corporate people. Christus has got hundreds of people coming in every day to stay in the hotels down around that area. So does Caterpillar, so does all our people. And probably 25 to 30,000 people coming in to work every day. 5,000 of them just right there at Wells Fargo. So there should be a way we could actually make this work. And that's what's always been my disdain with DART, is that they really never really took the time to see how do we make it work after we spent, between us and others, probably $2-3 billion in this whole area right here. So maybe there's a way we can get people to entice them to use it, and maybe that's a way to get our restaurants even more productive. I was talking yesterday, the Yard House had its most productive month it's had pre-COVID. So we're starting to see people utilize the restaurants in that area as well. So, Chris, did you have something you wanted to?
Just a quick question. Just confirming that non-service related animals, i.e. dogs, are allowed on the vehicle itself to get the paws clean, as an example.
Non-service related,
Yeah.
it's a policy decision, so if that's what you guys would like us to honor, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Would you say many of our other DFW services for non-service animals, it's like if it's in a carrier, it's okay.
Okay.
Just for safety of other passengers and things like that.
Understood. Thank you.
David, sorry.
Yeah, just one last thing. You saw two great presentations from our ICVB and our chamber. So make sure you get with both those groups on the circulator route. They got a great pulse into the community, so I'm sure you're talking to them.
We are, yes, we already have been. Yes.
All right, thank you.
And Mayor, if I may, the circulator, our goal is to have a 15-minute headway. We don't want it too long so people can go to the restaurant and get back to work on time. So that's our ultimate goal in the circulator. And I forgot to mention acknowledge Chief Conley for, providing public safety there as well for ambulance care and et cetera, so something happened on the routes. And also LCA, we met with them for our signage, where we're going to place them in the design and et cetera like that. And also Stephanie and Melissa, they did an outstanding job on this. I want to give them a special shout out for that. So thank you. And of course, Dan and Nathan, how can we do without them? God
Team
bless
effort.
everyone.
Whenever there's any transportation, it's a Dan. Dan the man. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the bids? Okay, item number 14 is,
Sorry, that number 8, I just think the numbers might be off, if I'm reading it right, on line 6, under 8.
line 6, a service fee of,
I think there's an extra 0 added to the 498, maybe.
You're doing 17% of the
Okay.
600, is that what?
We'll
you're
look at that
saying?
and follow up with you, sir.
I'm just not sure what I was looking for there.
Yeah, we'll look at that and follow up with you.
Okay.
I'll get back to that for us tonight. Item number 14 is amending Chapter 11 entitled Short-Term Rental Registrations, Chapter 8 of the City of Irving Code of Civil and Criminal Ordinances. Item number 15 is granting a franchise to Colgate Fiber LLC, a Delaware limited company, FKA Sprint Communications Company, LP, to construct, maintain, and operate a fiber optics transmission system and provide for the payment of fee or charge for the use of the street, alleys, and public ways. Item number 16 is an ordinance authorizing the partial abandonment of casing of a railroad width private drainage easement along a portion of property located at 3660 Cistercian Road, part of the ABA survey, abstract number 215, lot 1, block A, Cistercian Monastery, owned by CREC. Item number 17 is public hearing.
Pardon me, Mayor, but item 14 are short-term rentals. Do you mind if we go over that real quick?
Or is that part of the other?
I think we're going to look at that. aren't we?
No, the short-term rentals is a separate conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a presentation on the ordinance that council will consider tonight, if you want to go over that one.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Shane Diller, your code enforcement director. This item covers the ordinances presented for adoption this evening regarding updating some of our short-term rental regulations. You'll recall that in January, we brought a presentation update on the program itself, some basic stats and figures regarding short-term rentals in Irving. At a follow-up meeting in February, council gave staff specific direction to adopt some improvements to the operational standards of the ordinances and some other regulations. And this presentation here will detail what is the first of a few ordinances that will come before you over the coming months to implement those directions we received in February. Specifically, the ordinance tonight adopts language in our code that will prohibit multiple leases in short-term rentals that are in single-family homes. It will limit the short-term rentals in those homes to one lodging agreement per rental period. So you can only rent to a single guest in that period. So if it's for a weekend, you can have a single guest lease for that weekend. Now, a guest lease could be a family. It could be a number of people staying together. But what it doesn't allow for is separate rental agreements for individual rooms or individual spaces in the home, that sort of thing. And it does not restrict or take away any of our regulations we have regarding the number of people that can be in a home. It doesn't alter our 2 people per bedroom plus 1 or any of those occupant density factors that we have in the code. This ordinance tonight will also implement an off-street parking regulation. It requires that short-term rentals at single-family homes have a minimum of 4 parking spaces or 1 parking space per bedroom in the home. There's about 25 homes that are in our current 195 STRs that we have registered now that do not meet that standard. They'll start out being legal nonconforming, and we will apply this standard to any future homes that come in. So the vast majority of our short-term rentals will be able to apply this standard right off the bat, and then code enforcement will be checking the applications as they come in to make sure that future short-term rentals in single-family homes meet this parking standard. We're also requiring that the host in the property include in their posted guest rules on their ads and in their properties a requirement to use the on-property parking before they would use, the guest would use off-street parking. And then we are amending the language. Did I say that backwards? They're required to use the driveway parking before they would use the street parking. And then they post that in the required posting regulations that we have that include information like how to contact the city and noise regulations, trash regulations, those sorts of things. It's important to note here, once again, and one of the reasons why we're putting the onus on the host and hoping to improve things here on the host is that code enforcement specifically and the city more broadly does not have the ability to tightly regulate on-street parking as it is. So we're wanting to make sure that the hosts take responsibility for their guests' activities through requiring this regulation regarding the parking.
Shane, can I just
Yes, sir.
I want to be clear. The requirement in the ordinance is that the host establish a rule. If the guests ignore the rule, that's not a violation of city ordinance. So we couldn't go and then cite the owner because their guest chose to park in the street. We're simply requiring the owner to have a rule. Now, what we're hoping is each guest, in order to maintain the good graces with the host, would want to obey the house rules for the most part. But I just wanted to clarify that
That's a good
there's a
point.
difference there in what we would do in terms of a citation if a guest chose to ignore the host rule. That would be up to the host to punish the guest either by giving him a bad review or whatever the case may be.
Questions from two or three?
Oh, I just had a quick question.
Sure. Adam.
Are the postings, are those going to be online, like at the listing, or are they required to be like printed and inside the property, or?
It's both. The registration requires that the hosts provide us the link to their ads, so we're able to review the ads and make sure that they're accomplishing what we're asking them to do there. And then we have a separate section in the ordinance that requires a physical on-property posting of regulations, and this language will be included in that posting as well.
Okay, thank you.
David, did you have?
Oh, I'm going to let him finish.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I just.
So there's also a quantity limitation included in tonight's ordinance. This would limit the number of short-term rentals on a block face, so on one side of a street in our residential neighborhoods, to no more than 10% of that block face. Again, we talked about the various percentages we could achieve there and what different cities had done there, and 10% was the direction of council at the time and was about as aggressive as we thought might pass challenge in that situation. So our blocks are not uniform, as you know, and so we took a sampling of blocks where we had STRs registered, and in those blocks there were about 25 to 30 homes on average, which would give you about 2 or 3 STRs in a block at most. I can tell you that we've also looked at the 195 homes we have registered as STRs now. There's very few of them that are at or exceed this concentration now. We have a couple of blocks in the city that have multiple STRs. One block, a couple of the same individual owns a couple of them, but it's rare right now that we find that there's multiple STRs in the same block. And so in those small circumstances where that occurs, they'll be legal nonconforming. But we also feel like this gets ahead of saturation that we're worried about by implementing this standard now. And then code enforcement, of course, is going to check the mapping of our current STRs with the applications that are coming in and do the math and make sure that before any new ones are allowed to register, that they meet this standard. Otherwise, the registration would be denied. The last piece of tonight's updates are regarding the fire safety components. The property owners now, or the hosts for the properties, are going to be required to submit floor plans for the property so we can understand that they're using only the number of bedrooms that the home has approved and that they're not exceeding density standards in those ways. They're going to have to submit a site plan generally to give us an idea as to the layout of the site, and that'll help address the parking confirmation as to where the on-site parking of the 4 spaces or 1 per bedroom are at. They're going to have to require smoke detectors in all bedrooms, and then they're going to have to require a carbon monoxide detector that is outside sleeping areas if the property has a gas fuel burning appliance or is attached to a garage, which is standards and language taken out of the International Building and Fire Codes. And then they're going to have to be required to have a fire extinguisher on site that's a minimum of a 5-pound ABC type combo use fire extinguisher. There are other pieces that we discussed in February that are in process. So in addition to tonight's ordinance, the inspections piece that we're presenting is going through budget process now. We're developing our proposals as to what an inspection program would look like, what that would require, how we would accomplish as much fee recovery as we could there. And those will all work through our code enforcement's budget presentation process here in the next few weeks. There's a zoning amendment in our UDC that will accomplish the requiring of the conditional use permit in the single-family zones that is expected to go to the P&Z and back to you in council in July. And then we're going to bring a final ordinance to update the Chapter 8 requirements of the code to incorporate things like the inspections program, cross-reference the conditional use permit requirements, and make sure that everything's buttoned up well no later than September at this point. With that, staff recommends adoption of the ordinance, and I'm available for any questions.
Al?
Thanks, Mayor. Probably this is a question for you, Philip, and KO. It has to do with what kind of documentation can we deal with the owner that actually is providing this quote-unquote room or whatever stay it's going to be. When you look at a rental or a lease, there is a contract or a lease that you provide that lays out all what you can or can't do, because we're never going to have the teeth in any kind of an ordinance if we can't go after the individual that's renting that room. So I'm asking a question, as we go through this, where's the teeth?
We don't require them to submit their rental agreements. What we do require is enough evidence to prove that they're complying with our specific ordinances. So with respect to the parking, we're going to verify that they have it. With respect to requirements that hosts establish a rule related to off-street parking, we will check the ads, and then through the inspections program, we will verify that that's properly posted in the unit itself. So we will have enough teeth to enforce what we're requiring the host to do. But we're not requiring them to provide us copies of their lease agreements.
And why not?
There'd be no purpose in it. In order to accomplish the objectives of the ordinance, we have enough to be able to establish compliance with the rule. We don't need to look at the lease agreement
And
in order
Councilman,
to do that.
or Zaponta, to that point, I'm sorry, Mayor-elect Zaponta, to that point, the process we have in place now where the host, the 90+% of these are operated through internet websites like Airbnb and VRBO, and they're required to provide us links to their properties, and those are the links that the guests use to understand all the rules, to book to estimate the stays. And one of the things we find, and specific to the multiple leases angle of this, is that we know we have properties right now where they have multiple links for the single address, which we know would violate this standard once the ordinance is adopted, and we're prepared to then notify them, have them remove the extra links, so that through the company that helps us monitor the internet and the work that we do with knowing where the properties are at and looking at their ads, know that they are only renting to a single entity for a single period of time by not having those multiple links tied to the single property, if that helps.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
But I'm taking it one step farther.
Sure.
And that is, they violate whatever that violation might be, parking or what other kinds of activities that might be occurring in that short stay. At that point, what can we actually do? Can we fine?
Yes.
Can we do certain things? Because if
Yes,
it's not tied to the owner, then guess what?
Well, and that's what we do. Our registration process gets information from the owner and from the host if it's a different host. If it's somebody subleading or subleasing or renting a property and using it as an Airbnb. We get information for both of those folks. So our process so far has been that we work with we go after the owner of the property. And when we find violations now, we will notify the owner of the violation and will require correction. We've got a system in place now to where if we're finding 3 violations within a year and they're being found guilty of those, and we've got that system in place, we can revoke the short-term rental registrations. We've had to do that one time so far for a short-term rental that's violated the ordinances more than 3 times in a year. And we also have a system in place to where if ourselves or the police department, who we stay connected with on calls for service they're receiving at short-term rentals, are beginning to have an issue where we're seeing complaints begin to tick up, or we're seeing violations noticed, then we're sending the owners a sort of a warning letter in advance saying, hey, we're seeing activity at your property, or we're starting to document violations. You're running the risk of having your registration revoked, and then ultimately being subject to additional citations or fines for continuing to violate either the ordinances contained here or other ordinances related to the operation of the short-term rental.
Okay, well, you're answering my question, and you're getting to where I really want to get to.
Sure.
Because the people's habits will go and push as far as they can push. If we don't have the ability to fine, revoke and fine, then we don't have teeth.
Correct.
And as long as you're saying we have that ability. Now, Philip, is that going to be part of what we're going to be seeing, what that level of fines might be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Councilman?
I'm asking the question basically, when we come with our ordinance that we're going to be looking at, am I correct that we're going to be putting in front of us? And this is probably KO, you need to maybe wade in on this. Once we start to go beyond revoking, and if there's fines that are going to be applied, then how do we then actually perfect it, make it happen?
These are Class C misdemeanors that are filed in the municipal court. And so the ordinance that's before you, the Section 3, I mean, these are fines that go up to $500. And so every citation that's issued has the ability for that penalty to be assessed, but they go through the municipal court process. So, you know.
So it's cumulative at that point?
It can be.
Okay, well,
Yep.
good. That's my point. Because at the end of the day, unless there is that kind of a recourse, then all we're going to do is be issuing papers, and you're going to be spending time going out there.
Right, and if
Okay.
you zoom out, the ordinance does 2 different things. First is in order to be an operator, you have to be registered. So we have the ability, it's twofold. If someone that's registered is committing an offense, you have the ability to issue citations. There is also a mechanism to revoke.
Yep.
And if you do not have that registration, you are not permitted to do that business here in Irving, Texas.
Good,
So-
okay. You've tied the knot is what I'm looking for. Thank you.
David?
Shane, just one last question on the zoning amendment requiring CEP in single-family zones in July.
Yes, sir.
Is that what we discussed on the zones in Irving?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay, so that'll be coming back to us in July then?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mark?
So a couple questions, like on slide 4, the reference to living unit, how is that defined?
We're looking at that as is what they're advertising in their short-term rental. So for a single-family home, it would be the home itself. If it's a duplex, it would be one half of the duplex. And then if it's an apartment, for purposes of short-term rental, we look at the total unit of the apartment.
All right, and then so there's one lodging agreement, but then that could be actually sublet under these amendments, is that right?
We would not allow that. No, if in fact there were multiple, even a sublease would be a different lease than the primary lease, and we would consider that more than one for the property.
Okay. So you couldn't then like have one person have a rental agreement for the whole house or duplex or whatever, and then do a renting of a room. That's the pad split. That's really what we're trying to get at here.
Sure. In this situation, in the short-term rentals, that would be prohibited under what we've drafted, because we would look at the person doing the subleasing as the one violating our single lease ordinance in that situation.
Okay. So this, under this ordinance, it prevents the pad splits.
In short-term rental properties, in single-family homes, yes, it does.
Okay. Now, the enforcement mechanism, that's going to be against the owner, which could, a lot of times, we talked about this before, being an LLC, right? It would be, a lot of times it would be an LLC.
Could be, yes.
And those LLCs can just go away and they can convey the property to another LLC. So are we just chasing LLCs? But we are, I mean, and I guess I know in the future, we're looking at CUPs being required.
Correct.
That's not before us today, but.
No.
But in the future, I guess if we end up, if we pass that, then we can look at the applicant to see if they've been the principal behind a prior LLC that has been violating the ordinance. I guess I want to see, do we have something in mind, to prevent just like constant dissolution of LLCs and then transferring the property to somebody else to evade the enforcement?
To a certain extent, we do have the ability. We've got the ability to pull Secretary of State records on LLCs. We do enforcement against corporate entities fairly regularly, and we pull the LLCs to see who the responsible parties in the corporation are, the board that's declared, the registered agent, those types of things. So we would be able to compare that information. We also have, if we've got a property where they're just continuing to change hands and the property itself is an issue, we would pursue the same sort of 3 strikes and you're out process for those repeated violations, whether it's against a corporation or successive corporations or individuals in those properties, so that eventually we would be revoking a short-term rental at a bad actor and prohibiting the property from being operated as a short-term rental as a means of business if, in fact, they continue to violate the code.
If the prior strikes are against a different LLC, how can that be applicable to a second LLC?
Our assumption there would be if it's truly a bad actor, the frequency of those things is going to continue to occur. And if we've got a situation where we can tie the operators of the prior, and we can show for a fact they're just changing LLC's names, then we would look at not issuing a new registration to the same people, entities, parties under a different LLC for that property. We would block them out, if you will. Glance at my lawyers real quick and make sure that, because we've walked through this process internally right now because we've got properties that are owned by LLCs. And that's our current strategy. We haven't had that occur quite yet. The only revocation we've undertaken was against an individual. But we would look at the LLC background information, and if we can find it's the same people that are operating, we would just treat them as a continued owner.
So this is, but it is targeted to the owner, and I get that we can track the new owners if they're different LLCs to see if they have a history with this property or other properties too, for that matter. Yes. And to determine whether or not to allow a registration.
Yes.
We can reject it. But we wouldn't be looking at doing like an in rem sort of like enforcement against the property.
No.
Okay. Okay, and then, so then in the future, we'll be looking at the CUP requirement, and then that will give us some additional controls.
Yeah, that should come before you in July.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions? David?
Nope, all
good. You're good? I think we're getting there. It's going to be one of those challenges, but I think it's gotten worse and worse. I'm getting more and more calls from neighbors, and so it's getting out of hand.
Yes, sir.
It's always frustrating when you try to work with people to do something and then it gets being taken advantage of, and then we have to go back and start all over again. All right. Thank you, sir. Item number 7, was there anything on 15 and 16 that I read? If not, we'll go to 17, which is a public hearing ordinance, readopting section 13 through 14 of the Code of Civil Criminal Ordinances of the City of Irving, Texas, related to child care for city-operated youth programs. And that brings us to our zoning cases. Good afternoon.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jocelyn Murphy, Director of Planning. We just have a few cases tonight, and y'all have gotten emails and everything on the second case, but we'll talk about that in a second. The first case is at 8080 Walton, Suite 120. This is a request to add an REB to allow alcohol sales for on-premises consumption in an existing restaurant. It's a Angipar Chetnad Elite. It's about a 5,500 square foot restaurant that was recently constructed, and it's already in operation. They just want to begin to sell alcohol. Staff recommended approval. There were no letters of opposition or support, and P&Z recommended approval 8-0. Here's the location. Again, it looks like there's nothing there now. It is a relatively new building, and the restaurant is in operation. So here's the site plan. They've had to reconfigure and add some parking in order to accommodate the restaurant. Again, that was done through their building permit. So just a picture of the restaurant and the location next to PetSmart. There's an REB in the Patel Brothers area about a year or so ago. And just surrounding pictures. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? What I find interesting, I'll just pass, you'll get some of my feedback you probably don't need, but, we turned down the multifamily across the street from here when they wanted to do it, and because they said there wasn't any demand for retail. And this is about the third edition that's been put on. Now this whole section here is completely filled up, so there is the demand for the retail. It's just an example where we kind of held our guns, and I think we're going to be better off because we'll have some more retail in that area and make it work. So thanks, Jocelyn.
Sure. So the next two cases are companion cases, which y'all are very familiar with. And these are our last two cases for tonight. You have, I believe, all gotten emails about this. They have requested a 1-month postponement, so this would go to the June 11th meeting. They also requested tonight to have a discussion about the future land use. They talked about it a little bit at P&Z for those of y'all who watched that meeting. Just wanting to understand, it's some operational questions, but also to see if the land use question, if the land use change would be supported. So tonight, even though they are requesting a postponement, they do want to have that discussion, and we instructed them that the public hearing tonight would be the time to do that.
Okay.
Can I just make one, in our original recommendation, of course, we had recommended denial. Absent a vote for denial, we had recommended a 3-month delay to allow police and fire to get answers to questions that they have about public safety issues. If the motion is to postpone, you may want to hear from the fire chief or the police chief regarding how much time they think they need to get answers if there's going to be a postponement. I don't know if a month is enough time. But that's just to throw that out there. They've requested a month. We had recommended 3 months for postponement.
Chief is here if we want to just, rather than go through it tonight, if we know what we're if we know what we're doing, we know what we're doing.
It looks very different.
I got a couple chiefs here we can work with.
Good afternoon, Victor Conley, Fire Chief. Here to answer some questions related to the Tesla complex. I know that Chief Steele and I were on the call yesterday when we met with the Tesla public safety team. They went over a presentation very briefly and quickly with all the aspects of the program. We had quite a few questions following up, and it was primarily with the vehicles and how they operate on the street and how do we interact with them. There's still a lot of questions related to that. I've actually reached out to Chief Dwiggins out of Chandler, Arizona, which is about the same size city we are. They've been dealing with this for quite a few years, and also reached out to Chief Baker and Chief Jordan down in Austin, who's recently dealt with Tesla and Waymo, and they're telling me that Tesla is more transparent than Waymo. Chandler is telling me the opposite. So they never did touch on the storage, maintenance, repair, charging, any of that at a dispatch center. They just talked about the vehicles out on the roadway. Some of the challenges that they had on the roadway were, puddles of water, the vehicle would stop. He recommended maybe looking at an ordinance for drop locations or picking up people with these autonomous vehicles, because if they don't see a location to stop, they won't. And I think Councilman Pfaff's son had that issue. I actually talked to Chief Jordan right after I talked to you and shared that story. I think there's a lot. I'm not looking to stop them from coming to Irving. That's not my motivation. My motivation is to educate and make my firefighters aware of what they're dealing with, how to deal with any type of emergency there, and also, like I asked the Tesla team, how are you going to share this information with the community? I don't think it's the city's responsibility to spend the money to share this information. It should be yours. And they took that responsibility and said that they would. So I've also reached out to Chief Ball in Dallas, and he's getting me some information because I have Tesla over there now that's going out to Love Field and seeing what kind of issues they have there. But we want to go into this with both eyes wide open. We want to coordinate, collaborate. They want to be our partners and move into our city. They're welcome to, but I think they should come in and bring everybody to the table. There's a lot of things we can do here to make it a positive experience. We can set up stakeholder groups to deal with any rapid changes in the technology. We can also set up some form of online or communicative aspect where riders can share their experiences or challenges that they're having with it. And these are all ideas given to me by these other fire chiefs in other cities. So I do not think 30 days will be enough. I've got over 400 firefighters. I'll let police speak for themselves, but I would like for those personnel to be exposed to what they're going to be looking at down the road, not just me. And that's why I don't think 30 days is going to be enough. Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, Darren Steele, Assistant Chief, Police Department. From the police department side of things, we have a lot of questions. You know, how are you going to pull these cars over if there's nobody driving? If you have somebody in the car, we need to get in there and talk to them. How do we get to the windows to open? You know, felony stops. There's a lot of things we need to train our officers on. Accident scenes, if these cars need to be moved. You know, the cabs aren't going to have steering wheels, pedals, or anything in them. How are we going to get the car moved out of the accident scene? So we just have a lot of questions about how we're going to do some of these things with felony stops, accident scenes, and get the officers trained. So, yeah, I would think at least another 90 days would probably be beneficial to get some of those issues worked through and those questions answered. But
Yeah, and that, to me, it makes sense for us to talk about that now, because if that's what you really feel we need to do, then that's what we need to do, because realistically, you're going to have vehicles that are just kind of out there on their own, which is, you know, I mean, it's the new technology, it's going to happen. But, I mean, just even, Chief, I know you've had some concerns if they would catch on fire. How would you, you know, deal with that? And there's been concerns of how do you move them when they stop, and how do you get in them? And to your point, when you have, you know, we have a lot of people come through our city. I mean, there's millions of cars a day that come through this area. You have some of the areas where a car stopped in the middle of in a place could back stuff up for hours, and while we're trying to figure out how to get it out of there. So I think you have legitimate questions, and I agree. It's not that you don't want this technology, or you just need to understand more of how you can bypass things and how you can actually deal with it if you have a problem, is what I think you both are trying to say.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I asked Janet, City Attorney's Office, the recent International Fire Code that y'all put into place also had some amendments related to EV charging stations. Tesla's already asking questions about that, you know, and so I suspect they're probably wanting to do some charging on inside of the facility and some of those things. So we've got a lot of things we're going to have to work through as far as that, because we had that in place. We're not trying to regulate them now. They have to follow the fire code that we put in place and work through those issues. And like you said, the vehicles, they talked about a lot of the components being low voltage, but the cars themselves, as we've talked about before, can be 400 volts all the way up to 800 volts. And so you got to know how to deal with that, where the batteries are, and all the challenges Chief Stills talked about as far in the off-gassing, all the things we've talked about on EV vehicles. Now you've got an autonomous one that you're dealing with, and we can't go up and scan a QR code and call the dispatcher when this thing's off-gassing and throwing out 4,000 or 5,000 degree temperatures. So there's some things we got to work through, so we understand. I'm sure they've worked through this with other communities, but we need to work through them in our community for our personnel.
Mayor, if I could just make one comment, that this is a land use question ultimately, and the question before you is whether or not to amend the comprehensive plan to allow the use at a specific location. Our recommendation for denial is based on the comprehensive plan and council's recent decisions related to the comprehensive plan and whether or not that should be changed. And I think Tesla's wanting to understand, is there even an appetite on council to change the comprehensive plan to allow the use? So these issues related to how they operate aren't, they're accessory to the primary decision as to whether or not this is a good use at that location. I think if the council's inclined to say, look, this is, we don't mind the use, in terms of the location, we don't agree, we don't think the location is appropriate based on zoning and comprehensive plan, then you could just deny the request tonight if you like. If, on the other hand, you feel like that there's merit to the location, but you have unanswered questions that may affect that decision, then a postponement would be appropriate. So I just kind of wanted to lay the table. There's regarding
Get us back on track.
how the public safety issues are, they're accessory, but they're not the primary question. The question is whether or not this location is right for what they're proposing. And I interrupted Jocelyn's presentation at the beginning, and the comprehensive plan is really the primary issue. Should we amend the comprehensive plan to allow this use at that location? And there's some interesting questions I think that would be worth, Jocelyn probably should be allowed to finish her presentation before you get too far into it.
Okay.
All right. That's what I was going to ask, if you wanted me to finish it, so I will. All right, so just to orient you to the location, it's here at Horizon and Royal. Jetstar is here. This is the Citibank property that is actually has a demo permit, which we'll talk about here in a minute. This aerial here shows an existing, or a former actually, two-story building. This property, which you'll see in a second, has been demoed, and there are now 3 new industrial buildings on this property. Surrounding zoning is mostly ML20A. These SP2s are mostly freeway or ML20A. Our notification. So the future land use, to give you another brief of how we got here. This was a business district until 2023 when we separated the business district future land use into the business office and the manufacturing warehouse. When we discussed the Freeport area at that time, we had originally proposed for all of the area to go to manufacturing warehouse. In discussions with council, it was directed to pull back to just the areas on the west side to go to manufacturing warehouse where the existing warehouses are, and then down here around Jetstar for those to go to manufacturing warehouse, for the rest of it to remain the business office. So the property that in question is right here in this rectangle. This is a map of the existing zoning districts. It's, again, kind of the conflict that we've had between what they're allowed to do by right and what the future land use has. The zoning, of course, does regulate what they can do. So anybody who had a freeway zoning, which is what this property is today, or an ML20A light industrial, they can do manufacturing, distribution, and offices are an allowed use. Both the existing freeway and the ML20 in this area allows for the warehouse, which is why we're seeing so many demos and rebuilds from offices to warehouse. So this is a map staff put together. It doesn't include the Allstate property either. It just shows some of the building permits, and we've worked with inspections to confirm that these have either been demoed or are underway. You can kind of see here the 3 buildings on this property today. So that's the first question. We see the activity that they're doing as an outside storage, which is what triggered the industrial question and triggered the industrial zoning category that was chosen. And the industrial or light industrial is not allowed not allowed use in the business office district. So that's the first question as to whether the future land use should be changed in order to allow this use. And then the zoning case, I'll run through this real quick to get to the site plan. So this, again, is the property. These are the 3 new buildings. I think they were just built within the last year or so. And the applicant is proposing they would store the cars here. So the primary use is actually the storage and dispatch of the fleet. This was built originally to be kind of a truck yard. They would restripe it to hold, we counted approximately 212 cars. And then just this end of the building is what they would lease out for their indoor maintenance or cleaning. I think they may do a little bit of storage in here. But they would travel, and that's one thing we just clarified today. When we were talking about that with them in the last few months, we thought they were going to internally drive back and forth between the 2 sites. They confirmed today that they would be using the street to go back and forth between the 2 sites. These are just some zoom-ins of those 2 properties. Again, the parking lot / storage for the cars, and then the tenant space for the maintenance. This is just their description of what they say they're going to do. Again, just cleaning and maintenance and storage and dispatch of the automated vehicles. Just some pictures of the current buildings. This is, again, the corner property they would plan to lease for the maintenance. This property, there's already a wall, so there's a screening wall. I expect this is a driveway where most of the cars would probably come in and out, and then the storage building the storage lot is behind this wall. Another vision of another view of the wall. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, but that'll set some context for the question they have tonight.
Okay. Questions? Mark?
Are they talking about doing repairs on the site as well? Is it just
Yes.
storage? So repairs as well?
Yes.
That part was, so Philip kind of like summarized the staff's recommendation for denial. Can you speak to more to that? Was it just the outdoor storage part of it, or was it the repairs as being part of it?
It's mostly the outdoor storage. I mean, auto repair, I'll go back to the uses, sorry. This just makes it a little bit easier. So in neither the freeway district or ML20 district is auto repair a use allowed by right. So the freeway district, of course, is where they are today. So we see it as the primary use is the storage and the dispatch, the outside storage and the dispatch of the fleet. And the maintenance building is there as an accessory to the storage and the dispatch of the fleet. So in any industrial district, unless you get into the heavier industrials, outside storage is not a use allowed by rights.
Okay, and then, these, we don't have the ability to prevent autonomous vehicles in Irving. That's a statewide issue. There was some discussion about that, whether there are good things or not, but.
Yeah, the state essentially preempts cities from regulating them on public streets.
It's just a question of the land use, as Philip was saying.
Correct. This is specific to this property.
Whether we want to allow this to be more of an industrial type of use.
Correct.
From the office. Okay, and, all right, thank you.
Adam?
Did you say that the previous owner had truck storage there, or it was?
No, the design, so when they rebuilt it, sorry, I keep flipping around. When they rebuilt it, just because it's kind of a strange configuration, they probably couldn't fit a building here. So this area in here was intended originally as a truck yard for whatever tenants. It was probably a spec industrial anyway. So I think that was the thought. It's just a place to store some of the trailers that weren't being used. And then when this tenant came in, I assumed that was a discussion of, hey, this would be a great place to put the fleet.
Okay. And then just one other question. This might be for Philip or Chris, but are they going to be subject to the BPP and like inventory? Is this going to be a boon for the city?
I don't know if BPP applies to vehicles and a fleet. It's a great question, but I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding is it should. We'll
think
confirm
so.
that, but my understanding is that it does.
Okay, thank you.
Unless they drive them off the property on December 31st.
So I do have a question, because he piqued my interest, and I'd already thought about it. So if initially it was approved, and I assume it was approved that you could store trailers out there on the piece of property, and y'all was okay with that?
So in light industrial districts, you can have accessory outside storage.
Right.
So the trucks wouldn't be the primary use. They would be there stored for some of the businesses that are using the building.
Right.
With this operation, we see that as kind of flipped in that the primary use is the fleet is the dispatch area, where the maintenance, the operations inside the building wouldn't be there unless that fleet was there.
So is the issue the actual storage of the cars on that parking lot area where the trailers were going to be stored?
That's the question. I mean, it's still an industrial use, and of course, the auto repair is not an allowed use in either the freeway or the ML20. So it's not an office use, that's for sure.
I'm just speaking to the storage area that the fence is. From my simple way of thinking, if you're going to allow the storage of trailers and all that, what's the difference than allowing the storage of nice-looking cars? I mean, that's what I'm trying to clarify. Is that the main issue, the storage of the cars on that parking lot area?
Yes, it's the cars as the primary use versus the accessory use, which is what the truck storage would be. Are they acceptable? It's y'all's decision.
Well, I mean, whether it's a primary use or whether it's accessory use, it's a look.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm driving down the road and I'm going to see trailers over here on this parking lot, I'd rather see Tesla cars on that parking lot. That's kind of where I'm at from that, and that's what I was getting at. I mean, it's a much better sight to have some nice Tesla cars parked out there than a bunch of trailers and everything. So that's kind of where I was going, only on that, not anything else. I was just trying to get an understanding of just that parking storage of the cars versus the trailer.
Yes.
David?
And could you do that as a CUP?
No, because we didn't identify that as a use that could be considered by CUP.
Is there any other methods we can get to, not to approve something and then they
In order
look up and
to,
they've changed their whole mind on the project and
if you wanted to establish a CUP route for this type of use, that would be another ordinance amendment. We'd have to amend the ordinance to allow this type of use to be approved by CUP, and then they'd have to apply for the CUP. That's a route.
And the SP, the site plan district we're doing, SP2, generalized site plan, it changes the base district to the ML20 and adds this fleet and dispatch use.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Adam.
I was just going to make a comment. I'm thinking ahead 6 years from now with the next start and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I know there's lots of open questions and things that we need to take into account with the safety of these things, but, I mean, this seems to be a way that strategically we could supplement our public transit system, and having a site in our city, with its proximity to the airport, seems strategic, like we need to take a hard look at this, I think, and really consider it for the future. But that's just my comment. Go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
Mark?
Thanks. Yeah, so for the zoning case, looking ahead, it's talking about ML20A with the additional use of a facility for the storage, dispatch, service, and repair of an autonomous vehicle fleet. So that's what the zoning, are you going to talk about that in a few minutes?
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did, okay,
yeah,
you addressed it.
mhm.
So these additional uses then would be restricted to that, because I guess, you think, we always talk about these cases where you change the zoning and then they sell it to somebody else, and then all of a sudden it's like, cranes or something out there. So this would limit this, just, the additional use would just be then for these autonomous vehicles.
Right, it would change the base zoning district to the ML20A, and there's not much difference between freeway and ML20A, so today it is freeway. But yeah, only another autonomous, a Waymo or a competitor or something could come in who does the same operation that could use the same zoning. Otherwise, they would have to rezone.
There's no fencing requirement, right?
There's a screening requirement, but they do have the wall already, so they meet that requirement to the public street.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Abdul?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question in here. I mean, before we consider approval or denial, the email which I was going through, which we have received, they're willing to work with us, right? I mean, they say that if there is a way that we can modify our request to accommodate the city concerns. So have the discussion and conversations with them, what they could do and what they cannot?
So the main concerns are the public safety concerns. So the question, the land use question is something that only council can answer. So what they have proposed through the land use, or through the future land use change and the zoning change, we haven't had any issues with that. It's been more questions how you would operate if the land use is approved and the zoning is approved.
Well, yeah, that's one way. The other thing is they are saying that they are open to creative path forward to, and they are asking for our help or input. So if they ask our help and input, what can we recommend them?
So for this site, not talking about the function on the city streets, for this site, we have not had any concerns other than what we just heard about them using the public street instead of an internal driveway to go in between. We haven't had any issues with what they're proposing per se. It's always been that land use question because if the future land use is not changed, the zoning cannot be approved.
I think we are going to have their representatives coming in, probably.
Yes, they are here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Dan, I noticed you'd been sitting over there nice and quiet.
I'm here till 5, sir. Or 8, or 9, or 10. Whatever your pleasure is, yours and the council. Thank you very much. No, I'd like to say, A, it is a land use issue, and I understand that, and it is allowed by law. I do echo what the chiefs are saying, though. One is emergency services, how that's dealt with, as well as policing. And one of the things I think would be very beneficial to my group is to make sure that our transportation system has what's necessary to accommodate these type of vehicles on a more intense basis. It would be good for us to know what gives these type of vehicles grief to make sure we don't have a situation out there that could hurt somebody. So I think it'd be beneficial for us to get information. We certainly would want to be part of a group that listens from the emergency services side to make sure we don't have anything out there that would exacerbate and make something worse. But not against, just to understand. That's all.
Sure. Anyone else? You thought that was going to be easy, Jocelyn.
Oh, I knew this wouldn't be easy.
All right.
All right. That's our
Thank
last
you.
piece. Thank you.
The next, we've got appointments you guys are aware of. Not unless you guys got a problem. We could, yeah, we can. Yeah. Can we do that, KO? Civil service. Yeah, I think as long as we can do that. And that brings us to the end of this agenda. Why don't you read us into executive session and we'll take it. I know, but we need a break. Okay. We can do that afterwards. I know we got people here for the executive session. I want to make sure we spend time on that. The rooming house shouldn't. Where are we at on that?
I mean, it's a brief presentation. There may be legal questions on that as well.
So you want to put it in there? Why don't we put that in there with the legal as well?
Well, I would do the presentation.
Okay, how
and,
brief
yeah,
is brief?
Yeah. So you have context.
Okay, well, then we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and get the presentation, and if we need to include it in an executive session, we'll do that then.
Irving is very diverse, and we have many different kinds of people here of different cultural backgrounds. And so here's like a celebration that involves all of that.
We've got fusion going on right now, and it's just going to be an all-day long programming of different cultural entertainment. We've got 11 different performances that'll be going on the stage, everything from the folklorico dancers to the Chinese dragons, which are always a crowd favorite. One of our biggest things that we do here is the children's entrepreneurial market.
There are like 40 to 50 vendors out here with the kids. They sell all kinds of things.
We're selling lots of toys. Our goal is to turn our company Naga Labs into a robotics company, so we're using this to fund it.
I think they learn a lot of real life skills that they'll use throughout their lifetime. And it's just a good experience to get them out there, get their confidence up, and just be part of the community.
Irving is one of the most diverse cities, certainly in DFW and probably across the country. And I think it's important to have events and festivals that allow those cultures to come out and really express themselves.
You also open up yourself to being more empathetic and respectful towards other people, like just knowing, oh yeah, there's like more than just me out there.
Well, you need to celebrate it to acknowledge everyone and see how there's so much good things from every culture.
I think it's great to all come together and celebrate diversity.
A peaceful evening walk in the park.
In the evenings or in the summertime when you can't even find a parking spot and there's people just one right after another.
A vision, decades in the making, now nearly complete.
This is an incredible day.
Being part of the first layout and concrete being poured on the ground here, and to have now the funding to complete it, it's unbelievable, really.
Local dignitaries gather at Bird's Fort Trail Park, checking off one final mile marker toward the completion of the Campion Trail.
$2.1 million will complete the Elm Fork Phase 2 project, which, yay!
A $2.1 million check from the state of Texas finalizes the funding for the remaining connection of the Campion Trail in Irving.
Just to be able to get out and enjoy these particular trails and parks with our families.
State Representative Cassandra Garcia Hernandez helped secure the state funding for her district here in Irving, and she was thrilled to present the check to Mayor Rick Stouffer.
I knew that this was truly going to be something that we could bring back as a thank you to him and finishing a project that he's been very passionate about and that he had great love for.
This phase of the project will connect the Campion Trail from California Crossing in Irving to near Fraser Dam in Dallas.
That will tie it all in, and I mean, that way people can go all the way from the north all the way down south and turn around and come back and just enjoy all the great views out here on the trail.
And it's a great benefit for the whole community, but it's not just for Irving. This is something that provides connectivity to Farmers Branch, to Capel, to Dallas, and to the whole region.
A major step.
This one is a tough one and it's a special one.
Toward one final milestone on the Campion Trail. Robert Sheik for City Source.
Here's an idea. What if you, I don't know, say my name 3 times?
What?
Please don't make me beg. I will. I just really don't want to.
Okay, I'm begging, please. I'm so tired of being invisible.
Beetlejuice is this play about Lydia and Beetlejuice. It's sort of both their stories at once. And they're very similar characters in the sense that they feel alone, they feel like no one sees them. Beetlejuice, actually no one can see him.
Here's the good news. I found a way to make everyone see me. All I gotta do is get a living person to say my name 3 times. And I got a plan.
And it sort of explores how they respond to that. You know, Lydia, she's sad, she doesn't respect her family, and Beetlejuice is crazy. He's an insane guy, and it's sort of the fun back and forth between how they end up both sort of finding a family of their own.
Can you see me?
Yeah. You look like a bloated zebra that a lion ripped apart and then just didn't eat because something was obviously wrong with it, so it just rotted in the hot African sun.
You can see me!
Delia is a life coach.
Right. And what's that?
Almost anything.
She
Also has like, some issues of her own. She has some abandonment issues, but she's so fun, and I love getting to bring out that fun energy within her.
I got you this dress for your father's business dinner. It says, I'm warm, I'm friendly, and I think about death only a normal amount.
I think I've just been able to find a really great family here. I've really never had a community theater to go to and explore theater with outside of school, and so for me this was just an amazing opportunity, and I love being here.
I've made so many friends, and it's definitely made me feel great as a performer. I feel like here they really make you feel like you are so special and so unique in what you do.
I have asked Delia to marry me.
What? Dad, you can't do that.
Look, this is a good thing. I need a wife and you need a mother.
I have a mother.
The community should continue to support us because we just get to affect so many people, from the people who are in the show, in the crew.
Theater is so special and so human that I think really needs to be explored by the community.
Stack banana till the morning come. Daylight come and we want go home.
City of Irving Fleet Services employees gave residents a glimpse under the hood during a recent car care clinic. Staff members offered tips on everything from tire pressure and wear, sensors and warning lights, to various fluids. The goal of the class is to provide attendees with insights to make them more confident to maintain their vehicles and more equipped to handle roadside emergencies should they ever arise.
In case they ever come across any issues while they're out on the road, this will help them get to a safe spot or know how to repair their vehicles.
It's about, I think, community education. I think some people may feel intimidated to ask certain questions at their local auto shops. We want to be able to kind of lift that veil, answer questions that people may be concerned about.
Fleet Services hopes to make this an annual event, so keep an eye out for future clinics.
It's time once again to put your community expertise to the test.
What dart line runs through Irving?
At the 19th annual Irving Trivia Contest, 6 teams of 4 are battling it out in rounds covering topics from local landmarks to famous city figures.
My weak point is Washington Irving, so I hope I don't get a Washington Irving question.
Which of the following was not written by Washington Irving?
Yes, it's competitive. It is so competitive.
It does get competitive, but it's a good competition. It's fun.
Tim Folks of the Mustangs team is a returning champ, proving he's Irving savvy with 3 wins already under his belt.
I've been here my whole life. I just pick up little bits here and there, and it's stuck in somewhere up there.
You are a provocateur. Do not provoke these guys to a good time.
All the competitors show off their wit as the competition gets heated.
Oh my God, we got our first protest. I can't take it.
But in the end, Tim earns his 4th win as he and his team are triumphant.
We have a winner, the Irving Mustang.
Ultimately, it's not just about the trophy.
I just think it brings us all together.
It's important to come, find out about your town, find out, why we are here.
We need to remember our past.
Sharing hometown pride and keeping Irving's history alive for years to come.
A recipient of the City of Irving's Enhancement Incentive Program is JPT Graphics, which now features this incredible mural on one side of the building. With the theme Creativity Blooms Here, the mural showcases native Texas flowers and butterflies and offers some unique selfie opportunities.
There's a little bench you can sit on, a little swing, and then you can stand in front of the butterfly and become the butterfly yourself.
We were inspired by, all of the beautification that's been happening in downtown Irving, and we're really excited to see it grow.
If you'd like to see the mural in person and perhaps take a selfie, JPT Graphics is located at 212 West Irving Boulevard in the Heritage District.
I love it. This is our happy place. My manager and I, this is our happy place. We come here, we get so excited about opening every season. We decided to open early because in the summer it gets pretty hot out here, so a lot of people don't get to come out here and even experience it. We have shade trees all over. We also have misters throughout the whole park. We also have a little water play area for the kids. If they do get too hot, they can play in the water and stuff. We added more exotics. We've got miniature cows, we've got the miniature Scottish Highlanders, we've got miniature zebu cows from Africa, we have alpacas, we have fainting goats, we have sheep, we have rabbits, different breeds of rabbits throughout the park. We also have pig races. Lemurland is our focal point. When they first walk in, they'll have to see the lemurs playing and stuff, and that's pretty cool. We've got building block lounge that we have that's inside now with fans in there. Home Depot is actually sponsoring our construction area this year, so they donated all of the excavators and everything. I think it's great that the kids can come out here. It gives them an opportunity to learn about animals. We have educational signs throughout the park where they can actually read up on the animals. We love the atmosphere. We love the people that come out here. And we have people coming out from all over the Metroplex, not just Irving.
Raising the bar is a thing Buddy Capps knows a thing or two about.
It was a fun sport.
Here's a look at Buddy raising much more than just the bar. As a competitive powerlifter,
It wasn't somebody's opinion like bodybuilding. It's either you could do it or you couldn't.
This machine's been here since 1979.
but 4 decades ago, fitness equipment wasn't quite what it is today. So Buddy once again raised the bar.
So I'm in college and I'm sick of it. So I said, well, I know how to build stuff, weld and everything. I'll do it.
So in this South Irving warehouse, Texas Power Bars was born.
Some of the strongest, most durable weightlifting barbells that the world's ever seen.
Bars strong enough to hold as much weight as a human can possibly lift.
This big monster right here that we call the Texas 2-inch Fat Axle Power Bar.
Texas Power Bars now manufactures a variety of bars for different exercises. But they all share one thing in common: American steel.
The thing that will hold you back from being your strongest and being able to go chase those big lifts is steel that can't keep up with you. But we are one of the only in the industry that actually gets our steel right here from America.
Texas Power Bars now ships products used in the weight rooms of a number of NFL and Major League Baseball teams, as well as major college athletic departments. But bars built for powerlifting remain at the company's core.
It was just a great bar that didn't come apart and didn't bend.
There have been more powerlifting world records on our bars than anyone else in the industry.
Strong enough to lift champions while continuing to raise the bar.
Pretty cool coming right out of here, Irving.
Robert Sheik for City Source.
Make an appointment during the month of May for a free graduation photo shoot. This great opportunity is available only here at the South Irving Library, so plan your wardrobe, reserve a time, and get ready to smile. It's a Sundays at the Symphony event. The new Philharmonic Orchestra of Irving teams up with the Irving ISD Orchestra for a special matinee concert. Pieces de Resistance gets underway here at the Irving Arts Center on May 17th at 3:30 p.m. Texas Frightmare Weekend is back at the Irving Convention Center. Autograph sessions, screenings, and photo ops are all part of the event. Experience the Southwest Premier Horror Convention May 22nd through the 24th.
More than 100 volunteers recently scoured Trinity View Park for litter and trash as part of Keep Irving Beautiful's Great American Cleanup Trash Off. Some of the volunteers left no stone unturned, as collectively they picked up more than 500 pounds of trash and also collected another 50 pounds of recyclable materials.
Our children play in these fields, so we keep them clean, they're more sanitary, they're just a better environment for our kids here, for our community.
If you'd like to get involved or learn more about Keep Irving Beautiful, visit irvingtx.gov/KIB. Your ICTN team produced 49 videos in the month of April. We invited all of the candidates for mayor and city council single-member districts, 3 and 6 seats.
Code Enforcement Director,
This item is to present information to the council on some enforcement strategies that we're beginning to take regarding rooming houses. Now, specifically, there's been an increase, as you know, in single-family homes being rented out individually by rooms. And that's generated a number of complaints to code enforcement, to the council directly, and many of these properties rent for longer than 30 days, which means they elude our short-term rental regulation, registration requirements, those sorts of things. But obviously, they're not operating as a traditional rental home in our single-family neighborhoods. So one of the things that complicates the investigation and enforcement historically here has been that these types of properties are governed by older zoning code definitions, and we'll talk about a couple of these in a moment here. And of course, we're working with legal to watch the ever-evolving legal landscape with case law that comes out regarding private property protections and those sorts of things. So we've begun investigations and begun issuing notices to properties, and I'll walk you through a little bit of what we've begun doing here on this front. Specifically what's in play, and these are the three types of housing definitions. Two of these are drawn from our UDC, from our zoning code, and one of them is, of course, our short-term rentals definition in Chapter 8. So we have a definition in the UDC that is boarding house or rooming house, and that is defined as lodging, but not a hotel, that provides accommodations and meals. This use is prohibited in all of our residential zones except for the extra family residential zone, RXF, and there are 6 properties, if I remember that number. It's a very low number. 6 properties in the city that are zoned RXF. The second definition is rooming house. Now, you'll note that rooming house is the same language used in the previous definition, which has been one of the struggles from an investigation and enforcement stance that we've had to work through. And that is renting single rooms, and this is straight from the code, single rooms to single people permanently or for a prolonged period of time. And of course, it as well, just like the other definition, is prohibited in all of our residential zones except for those RXF properties. And then of course, we have the short-term rentals definition, which is renting for less than 30 days. And it's allowed currently in the residential zones, and they of course have to register and comply with our operating standards, which we're updating tonight and are going to do some other work with regarding CUPs later in the summer and inspections in the fall. So you can see as code enforcement receives these complaints, we look and we try to figure out how do we apply these standards to what we're finding or what even being complained about. And there's obviously some duplication of information. There's, can we prove they're providing meals? These things are things we run into. So what we've determined is when we talk about pad splits traditionally, the rooming house definition is what we think fits best in looking at these homes that are renting out individual rooms to folks. And that's something that using this definition would be prohibited currently in our single family zones. And we found as we looked at the websites on the internet, pad split specifically, that the complaints we're getting and this business model that we're having issue with is it lands in this rooming house definition of these individual rooms. And so we have begun investigation and notice to these properties. We're working with the Lodging Revs company, which currently works with us to identify short-term rental properties. So they're already data mining the internet and the websites to help us identify other properties that may qualify for investigation and ultimately enforcement of these properties. We currently have, like I said, investigations underway of the ones that we've received complaints about or that we currently know of. Right now, as of today, we've got 6 cases open. When this was drafted, we had 5. 2 of those we've been able to document what's occurring and been able to issue a notice of violation, letting the property owner know that we've documented the evidence that they're operating a rooming house and that's not allowed, it's prohibited. And then we're going back through and we're reviewing our most recent case, the last year or so of case complaints, and seeing if there's any that we received complaints about that might fall into this bucket that we were not able to get either a firm determination on, or we struggled with which definition to apply to it and weren't able to make any traction with enforcement on, so that if there's others out there, they don't slip through the cracks, and we can at least investigate and work those if possible. The identified properties, and specifically the two that have received notice so far, have received notice to cease the use, but because of the complication with them having, conceivably what the people that are in there think are legitimate tenancy and a place to live, we're giving them 30 days to find other lodging and for the use to cease. So the two that we have issued notices so far, those uses are required to cease by late April, or by late May, early June, depending on when they receive their notice, before we would continue investigation and ultimately take enforcement action on if we found they continue to operate in this way. Now, again, we talked about, I'm trying not to get too deep into how we investigate them or what struggles we run into, because I don't necessarily want to tip my hand, if you will, in regards to what we find here. And if there's real specific legal questions, I know there's an executive session coming up, and legal's happy to walk you through the nuance of what we've struggled with here and what we continue to struggle with. But there are challenges I can speak to. Obviously, the violations related to these properties, even when we get complaints from neighbors, they're not as obvious as most code enforcement violations we enforce. It's not something we can see and document from the public right-of-way, which is really our bread and butter. So we have to be able to document what the use and rental arrangement are. We need to be able to talk to somebody at the home. We need to be able to find the internet ads. We need tangible evidence that show that, in fact, they're operating in a way that fits into this rooming house definition. And then at that point, we can issue our notice of a violation. And then each enforcement step down the road requires that we reconfirm that the activity is continuing. These are all Class C misdemeanors, and misdemeanors have to be enforced by us observing the violation that's occurring. So we have to undertake that investigative step again. And then, of course, this language we have in the zoning code that is dated is something that we're working with planning and working with legal right now to update and provide better clarity to, both for the folks that operate homes, the residents who read our zoning code, and then for the enforcement folks and the legal folks who would ultimately issue notice, citation, and prosecute these in court. So we're planning to bring some amendments to a future P&Z, hopefully trying to tie those together with the other work we're doing regarding short-term rentals if possible, to clean up these definitions, not change them, not strengthen them, because we feel like a strict prohibition in the residential area is what we're looking for. But we want to make sure that the language and the definitions are very clear so that there's not a questioning of what we have when we go to investigate or enforce these, or we're not stutter stepping, if you will, as we move these things through the process. We want to make sure we've got good, clear language that we can take and aggressively enforce as we find them. And with that, I'm open for questions. And again, if we need to get real far into like investigative strategy or legal advice or anything like that, I think legal's ready to assist me with this discussion.
Dennis. Yeah, I just got a few questions about some category possibilities.
Sure.
And what I mean by this is, and I'm not talking about our city, but I know of several situations in another city whereby you have, I guess you would call it in this city a rooming house, but it's funded by the state, whereby you have like people who get a residential piece of property, and then they have like a recovery, or they have halfway houses, whatever. They may have about 5 or 6 people there.
Yes.
The state is actually paying the owner.
Right.
Would that apply here?
It could. We have an entirely different category of use called boarding homes.
Okay.
And that's typically where those fall into. And we have a current requirement for boarding homes to license and inspect with us unless they meet one of like 14 different exemptions that the state law and case law have required that we include there. This ordinance was updated some years ago to make sure that we're staying legal with the landscape there. And that would generally fall into those. We only have one boarding home right now that's actually just come in the last couple of weeks that's going through a permitting and inspection process now because it does not meet any of the exemptions. It's a home for the elderly. And that right there is a use that's permitted in all of our residential zones. And if they are licensed by the state or there's oversight and regulation that comes with that we're basically preempted from working in. And then if they're not covered by those exemptions, then we already inspect and permit those as a use.
Okay, and then the second example is a nonprofit that has a residential property, but they use it for transitional housing, and they may have 5, adult men, but those men work because those men pay a certain amount of money, for the rent of that property. But it's a nonprofit that actually leases the house from an owner.
Sure.
And kind of run this transitional housing. Would that meet the rooming house definition?
The way you've described it, that would likely meet the rooming house definition as operated by the nonprofit. They would be operating a rooming house because they've got individual agreements with the different tenants and are dealing with them individually, so they don't come and go as a group. They would show up as single people for single rooms. So that would meet the definition of rooming house we're talking about.
And that would be not allowed in the city of Irving.
That would be prohibited unless they're zoned for the RXF zone.
And with
XRF.
that, so say somebody would, and again, these are not examples in Irving, they're in another city, but say somebody did decide, they want to take a residential piece of property, a nonprofit, and want to kind of do the same thing, provide a transitional housing model like that. Could they come in for that RXF zoning?
Yes, yeah. If they've got something they feel meets that extra family zoning, they would come in. They would go through a zoning process with Jocelyn's department, like any other parcel would that want to rezone if they've got a current like R7 or R6 property and are looking for the ability to do that, they could have that considered by the council through the zoning process.
Yeah, because I just know, kind of working in the nonprofit homeless arena, that all over the Metroplex, people are trying to figure out ways how to get more transitional housing for people, and that's one of the ways they're trying to find, residential piece of property, that they could use. They monitor it, they're over it, but again, it just the dynamics of it is exactly what you're talking about. So
yes.
All right.
Other questions? Yep. John, I'm sorry.
Just a real quick question regarding the definitions of rooming house. So boarding house, obviously, that requires the meal component.
Yes.
Rooming house, does it make a difference whether the tenants have access to shared spaces in the house?
From the definition of the code, no, it does not. It just talks about the renting single rooms to single people.
Okay.
And so if there's language in the residential code that if they've modified the home so that it's no longer a shared space home like you would traditionally have, where the kitchen is accessible to everyone and the shared bathrooms are accessible to everyone, and we've run into some of that, then we have enforced those as properties that have undergone a remodel without permits and required that they either return the home to the original design as approved and permitted for construction, or to submit plans that can be considered and approved through the inspections department for a remodel of the home that would still accomplish all of the requirements of the residential code, but with adding additional bedrooms or something like that.
Okay. Yep, just want to make sure that there's not some obvious loophole where, well, they use the kitchen, so it's not just renting the room.
Yes, no, for what we have, I feel like the language in that rooming home section, it needs some work, but it doesn't have a complication like that we've run into.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Shane, does it address any type of like shared bathrooms as far as what that means or anything of that nature?
Not specifically, no. It simply, I believe that when this was adopted, it made the assumption that the home is going to have the right facilities that a home would need, and that simply the bedrooms that are legal in the home, that have been constructed under permit in the home, are going to be rented or leased individually to folks in like a single room occupancy situation. And they're not making, the code itself doesn't make any inference to the restroom situation or the kitchen situation. It just looks at the use of the bedrooms and how those are rented out and leased.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right. KO, that brings us to our executive session.
Yes, sir. Happy to read you all in. The time is 4:17. The Irving City Council will convene into an executive session. There are a number of items. The items that are listed, there is a deliberation of real property pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Sections 551.072, economic development negotiations pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. There's an appointments item, item number 21, so it's a personnel item under Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074, and then to receive legal advice as necessary pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071.